Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's your friend Dom C from Project Prospect, and I'm back, and we're here with another mock draft, and yet another guest host for this mock draft, so stay tuned. And we're back. Again, guys, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, I appreciate you being here. It's your friend Dom C of Project Prospect. I am part of the Draft Dodgers. Unfortunately, my co-host Tigo is still under the weather, battling a real bad bug flu or something like that. So we're going to continue the content for you guys, all you loyal listeners and followers. We want to put out top-notch content. So without Tigo here, I had to reach into my Rolodex of really good, compatible draft content creators, and I really picked a winner here today. This is a guy, truth be told, I haven't worked with him yet, but I'm so excited to. I've been a big fan of his channel and his content for a while now. I follow it religiously. You guys should too. His YouTube page is at TEEJ, that's TEEJ11 on YouTube. With further ado, I bring up TJ. TJ, how are you, man?
I'm great, man. Tom, super excited to be here. And man, this is like when everyone's in draft season. So I'm super pumped to get into this mock draft because right now, like, there's an infinite number of doors you can walk through. So I'm excited to run through this mock with you.
Oh man, I know. And myself as a Jets fan, like this regular season can't end fast enough. So I've been knee deep into draft and draft content for probably since the middle of September. Getting myself prepared, getting all my ducks in a row, all my film watched. I'm getting ready to head down to Mobile for another year down at the Senior Bowl. So I'm pretty stoked for that. But what better time to really, really pump the mock draft content than now? So I figured, hey, listen, let's get you on here. Let's collaborate and let's give these guys everything they want. So just so you know, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, I'm going to repeat it again. TJ's YouTube channel is at TEEJ11. So please go ahead and give him a thumbs up, a like, a follow. Hit that bell for notifications whenever he comes up. His content's amazing. I think you'll really, really get a lot out of it. And our channel, as you know, is at Project Prospect with Dom C. If you haven't already, I'd appreciate a like, a follow, a thumbs up, all that stuff that makes the YouTube algorithm really, really like us and push us up to the front. So we're going to give you a little one round mock draft today. We're going to do it with trades. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen.
Awesome.
And, not that. We're going to share the screen over here. And we're going to pull up the old PFF mock draft simulator. As you guys see, we're doing one round. We got all the teams in here. We're going to enter the draft. And as my guest today, TJ, I've given you the honors to kick it off with the Chicago Bears. Now, I'm going to say this. I might have done this purposely because I want to see how others feel. I have two very distinct ways the Bears can move, but I'm curious to see in what other people are thinking about. So you have the honors, my friend. TJ, the board is yours.
Oh, well, thanks, man. And we were talking pre-show, odds or evens, and I was like holding out hope. I was like, maybe he'll take the odds, so I don't have to make one faction of the Chicago fan base angry while the other one happy, or vice versa. Yeah, honestly, I think right now, if I had to make a decision and a prediction on what Chicago does, I think Justin Fields is under center next year. I really do. I think it's kind of back-to-back years now where like the last 4 to 5 weeks of the year, he gives you just enough. And you're like, all right, yeah, we got to buy into this. So, man, I think with Eberflus coming back, he'll keep Fields around. Maybe they'll change play callers at OC. So I think Chicago is going to basically just look at this as an opportunity, load up on more draft capital. I think Ryan Poles has actually been a pretty solid drafter. Now it just comes down to who is going to be the team that trades up. So to me, honestly, I think it makes a ton of sense to be Washington. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, what's the point? You're moving up one spot. it's to box out any other team that might look at Caleb Williams or Drake May and say, that's my guy. Also, just for superfluous reasons of like, I'm Josh Harris, I'm a new owner, I'm going to reignite the fan base, I'm going to nail this GM hire, I'm going to nail the head coaching hire. Let's go trade up to number 1, go get our guy. So let's see. I have Draft Tech open as well. So it's definitely going to be the number 2 pick for Washington, a future first rounder. What do you think? PFF won't let you go another year in the future. You just want to make it 2 1s, 2 2s, moving up 1 spot.
2 1s and 2 2s sounds like. I mean, what is the point differential between 1 and 2 in Draft Tech? Was it 1,500 points?
400. It goes from 3,000 for pick 1 to 2,600 for pick 2. But it's for a quarterback, so like there's some inflation there.
Well, I mean, this is only a first round draft anyway, so we can just force this out. We're going to call it 2 1s and 2 2s, and we're going to let Washington pump up on the clock. So, TJ, you were up with the Commanders.
Man, this one's easy. Personally, Drake May is my quarterback 1, and I feel like that's really caught on of late. Handful of my preseason rankings are starting to become kind of consensus now, which is I don't know if I should be afraid of that or like, hey, okay, cool. People are seeing the same stuff I am. Here I'll go Caleb Williams though. I actually just saw he posted a picture where he was in DC, and I was like, okay, well that's kind of interesting. He said he's back in his city. I'd have to do some deep dive what his relation to DC is, but that could also be a fun storyline there. Yeah. But I like going back to the Josh Harris of it all. I feel like Caleb Williams comes with a little bit more splash. Not that that's why you should make that pick at 1. But I could see where if you get the head coaching GM hire, you draft Caleb Williams at 1, everyone's going to be excited about it in DC. Versus if you draft Drake May, I feel like your more mainstream Commanders fans will be like, oh, another UNC quarterback. Like, I feel like that's going to be all they hang on to. So I think, Harris is going to make some splash moves when it comes to filling out that front office, the head coaching staff. And then I think Caleb Williams with a move up to 1. I think this is like, okay, cool. Turn the page, new chapter in Washington.
Yeah. Listen, I think that is probably the way I would lean as well. Drake May is not my number 1 quarterback. Caleb still is.
And I respect it. They're both great.
Yeah, but listen, it's different strokes for different folks. Some people are going to really look for that more outside of the scope of the pocket, can make something happen off platform, so on and so forth. That's the excitement. I mean, they both have howitzers on their arm. You know what I mean? So it really just depends on really which one is going to fit your offense better. So Caleb Williams, I will say, I know is from the DC, Maryland area. So that is a hometown boy. That to me, this would be a no-brainer. So I'm going to be up with Chicago, and I got to tell you, I'm tempted to move back again. I'm tempted to take New England and kind of take that same mindset that Washington had and really let Chicago just sit here and gather a bevy of riches, but I'm not going to. For sake of this, I think they're just going to. They got their 2nd round pick. They got their future capital. They're going to just sit and pick, and they're going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. Arguably the most talented player in this class to some. I mean, I think generational is used way too often. I would kind of put him and Brock Bowers in that generational concept because I don't think we're going to see receivers or players at their position with their, body, with their skill sets of their caliber for the next 10 to 15 years. I mean, Harrison just does it all and does it effortlessly. 6'4", shouldn't move that well. Beats you on all 3 levels of the field. Obviously, we know the hands. I mean, obviously we know the pedigree. He's the best wide receiver. And if you're going with Justin Fields, you better load up that offensive weaponry around him. So now you have DJ Moore at your Z. Now you have Marvin Harrison at your X. And I think you're in good shape.
Yeah. And I mean, now there's an interesting move here that could have been done. Like, I think we're all like, is it going to be Fields or is it going to be a rookie at 1? What if there's like a middle ground here where you trade down, get an extra couple of first and 2nd round assets, and then still draft a quarterback? Like, what if, I don't know, we would have to get into a scenario where QB1, clear-cut guy still available here for Chicago. But there is a world where maybe they can tread in both, waters. But in this scenario, barring you get the great offer from New England, which we'll see what they do with their front office, not a franchise that's typically been willing to expunge assets. Or if you get a team like, I don't know, the Giants want to jump from 5 to 2, maybe then. But look, I like Darnell Mooney, but Marvin Harrison Jr. is a pretty clear upgrade over that. Like you said, plus DJ Moore, I think this would give Chicago the chance to say, hey, now we're giving Fields our Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle combo, our Higgins and Chase, our Debo and IU, something like that. And I think that becomes a really fun sell. But I wouldn't be surprised either if Chicago double trade down. Like, I think that would make Bears fans ecstatic, especially if it's New England, because then you can still take Barv at 3. But
yeah, and like I said, in my mind, the only way that would have made sense right here is with New England, because I didn't want to go past Arizona and risk the opportunity to lose that Marvin Harrison pick. But such is life. I just settled on sticking and picking, and you are up with New England. And is Bill Belichick coming back? Is there going to be a GM? Is Mac Jones the answer? Gosh.
Well, I could feel most confident answering that last one. No. So Drake May is going to be the pick here. It is going to be really fascinating to see what this organization does, because I don't know who wants to step into a world as Bill Belichick's, predecessor, his successor, excuse me. Same thing that kind of happened with Brady. It's like, who wants to be the guy to follow up Tom Brady? Feels like a really bad spot to find yourself in. But I do think ultimately they are going to move on. Apparently now the Harbaugh is like the hot Chargers candidate. So I felt like that Bill Belichick kind of made some sense in my mind. I could see a world, especially after they fired Tom Telesco as their GM. But I think it's time for New England probably to go ahead and look towards the future. Just because things worked, over the last 20 years doesn't mean they're going to work for the next 20 years. So I think they're going to part ways, and this is going to be kind of that step in that direction. I have no idea who they hire as their head coach. I could see an in-house thing like a Gerard Mayo. I think
Mayo, yeah.
I think that makes a ton of sense, but at the same time, like I said, just because things have been done this way in the past, as a Steelers fan, trust me, like, don't let the last 20 years dictate how you want to do the next 20 years. Please move forward. Please start thinking with where the game's heading. So I'd love to see if they could, if they landed Ben Johnson, I think it'd shock the entire world, but it'd be like, okay, cool. Like, we are totally moving a new direction. I don't know if he wants that job, but something like that would be a really fun offseason there for New England.
Yeah, and I think obviously, consensus, however you have them, 1A, 1B, Drake May, it's going to, I wouldn't be surprised if, Jaden Daniels gains some steam and just that athletic piece that he offers entices some GMs to take a stab. But Drake May, the good thing about Drake May is there's really, he's really not scheme dependent. You can pop him into any style of offense, and I think he can succeed. Like I said, he's not nearly the athlete that Jaden Daniels is or affect the run game, but he's mobile enough, he doesn't have, he doesn't have quite the arm strength of, say, Milton or Caleb Williams, but I mean, it's not a bad arm. I mean, it's still a very, very good arm. He can make all the throws. So I think a lot of teams are going to be happy with him. I still question some of the process and stuff. He gets a little bit of happy feet, but that's stuff that I think the good players or the elite players work themselves out. And the ones who can't figure that out, a la Zach Wilson, end up not working out. So I don't think that's Drake May.
And really, I think the reason I partially lean towards May over Williams is, like, he may not be the best in this class at any one specific trait, but damn if he's not 2 or 3. And he's like B+ level at everything. And I just love a guy that's like, need him to do something, I can feel confident he'll be pretty good at it right away.
Yeah.
Versus Caleb, where it's like, dude, the playmaking is out of this world, but also the time to throw is really alarming. So just different ends of the spectrum there. And actually even talking about, Jaden Daniels catches steam. I mean, Michael Penix, that college football playoff. I mean, and then Penix was the natty against Michigan. He's been my QB3 this whole cycle. So
those medicals are gonna be really important for Michael Penix. I mean, that's a real thing though. So I hear you. Talent wise, he's up there with these guys. Totally. And he's up there with these guys.
With him, Leatu Latu, and Peyton Wilson, these 3 guys with insane medicals. But the last 2 years, they've been healthy. All 3 of them. The last 2 years, they've been good. So, I want to know where that stands in the NFL. How much does that matter?
Yeah. That brings me up with the Cardinals. And I think the Cardinals can go a few different ways. I really like the idea of Malik Neighbors here to pair him up with Michael Wilson, give another vertical aspect to this offense. You have Rondell Moore. Is Hollywood Brown under contract? I think might be a free agent.
He's about to be a free agent, but you also have Michael Wilson there.
Yeah, Michael Wilson, and the tight end has come. The tight end has come. Trey McBride has really stepped up this game, and we forget that Zach Ertz was even there. So there's a lot of weapons there. I sneakily think that this is a good spot that we're going to see one of the offensive linemen come off the board. That's a way that can go, but I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to make a deal, and it's one that I'm going to have to force, but I'm going to let the Giants come up and get QB3 in this draft class. Okay. And I'm going to kind of do the same thing, similar to what we did, except I'm not going to add the second since we're going up. I'm going to do 2 1s and a 2 to come up, and let's see if it's offered, and it's denied. And guess what? Voila, it's done. So the Giants are going to come up, and the Giants are going to take Jaden Daniels. I think that whether it's the Giant, if we see, which we most likely see, we see Caleb Williams and Drake May go off in the top 2 or 3. I think you're going to see a team move up to take Jaden Daniels. I think that Joe Shane is going to take his shot now to draft his quarterback. And this is a good draft cycle to do it. Listen, you could wait and you could hope that maybe a Penix or a Nix kind of slips into the beginning of the second round where you're picking, but you know that is too risky of a play. You know that you can get out of Daniel Jones' contract after the 2024 season relatively scot-free. I don't know. I mean, Giants fans are really 50-50, probably leaning a little bit more that Jones is not the guy. But I think you're going to need a fresh cut, and I think Joe Shane's going to want it to be should be offered the ability to pick his guy and see if you can restart that. You restart the salary on a rookie quarterback deal and build the team around him in the vision that he wanted, not what was left to him with Daniel Jones. Now, granted, they did negotiate an extension for Daniel Jones. People might argue that might have been forced a little bit by ownership. I don't know. I'm not one to say, but I think that Jaden Daniels comes in, and the beautiful thing is, Jaden Daniels comes in. He doesn't have to start, right? You can put him in competition with Daniel Jones and let Daniel Jones, play out this year and see what happens. Some of the best quarterbacks that we've seen. Listen, Patrick Mahomes, all-world quarterback. He sat his first whole entire year. There's nothing wrong if that's the case with Jaden Daniels. I don't think that would be the case. I think at some point he'd either beat out Daniel Jones or, they'd hand over the reins midseason. But I digress. Jaden Daniels is going to be the pick for Brian Daboll and Joe Shane in New York, and you are up with the Cardinals.
All right. Well, real quick, let me hit on this Giants because I think this is a really fun. It's a fun idea. Maybe not so much for Joe Shane because, you're right. They could take a quarterback this year, or you could say, well, if Daniel Jones doesn't work, okay, expendable contract, you move on from it next year, and then you get a chance to draft a Shadir Sanders or whoever may be QB1 that year. But then I think about it, I'm like, the Giants made the playoffs his first year at GM, or rough this year, and what if they have the same record next year? Like, what if they take another step down? It's kind of got that Washington, Ron Rivera track record. Make the playoffs, and then every year after that, you're just taking a cascade down.
Yeah.
And then, are you making that pick next year? So, I almost wonder if this is the way. It's a little cliche for, Joe Shane and Brian Daboll will be like, give me 2 more years. Just trust me, 2 more years. Let me get my guy now to kind of extend their leash. It's a really interesting kind of game of chess they'll have to play there. But anyways, getting to the Cardinals here. Well, I mean, you already hit on it. To me, this is going to be Malik Neighbors for me. The fact you can trade down, get a future first rounder and a second rounder this year and still get a guy who, I love me some Roma Dunze, but Neighbors might be closer to Marvin Harrison Jr. than Roma Dunze.
Yeah.
And Odunze may be closer to Neighbors than he is to wide receiver 4 in this class. I mean, it is an insane top of this wide receiver class. That's been my 3 all year long. And I just think you add the explosiveness that Malik Neighbors brings to the table. He's Hollywood Brown upgraded. He's a Hollywood Brown that can win at all 3 levels, in my opinion. You have a year 2 of Michael Wilson. Rondale Moore is the kind of gadget guy. You try to find another zone beater underneath kind of option. And I feel like that's a really strong receiving core around Kyler Murray, who can do a lot in his own right. So love Malik Neighbors. Think he should go top 5. And I think this is actually a great way to kind of round out that Arizona receiving core.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. I think that it's funny you talked about Odunze and Neighbors and the same and I was having this discussion with somebody the other day. I said, if you go back for, a couple draft cycles coming out of college into the draft, I think Neighbors and arguably Odunze could have been wide receiver 1 in a few of these draft classes previously. And they're 2 and 3. I mean, the class is so deep this year at the wide receiver. And Malik Neighbors, I think, is just breaking out into what he really has the potential to reach. The sky's the limit for this kid. I mean, what he can do vertically, what he can, the route running, the agility. I mean, he's improved his hands. He improved his drop rate a lot this year. So I think Malik Neighbors is going to be a household name in the NFL for years to come.
Well, and to kind of piggyback off that, this kid's going to be 20 when he
Yeah.
goes to training camp.
Yeah.
Like you're saying this guy's coming into his own. Yeah, he was quiet that first year or two at LSU, but the last two he's been insane, and he's just now kind of hitting his stride, I think. And he's only going to get bigger. He's only going to get more physical. Yeah, buy while the stock is going up.
That's right. That's right. And I'm up with the Chargers, and I think Malik Neighbors would have been a perfect fit for the Chargers.
Yeah.
You know, they who's going to coach the Chargers is the next question. You know, listen, you get somebody in there, you have Justin Herbert, right? You don't know. They're in salary cap hell, so who knows if Keenan Allen's coming back. I mean, I don't know what, without having anything in front of me. I know he's got a huge cap number, and I know they kicked that can down the road a little bit, but it's going to be time to pay the piper. So my guess is that he's probably one, either him or Mike Williams probably won't be on the team. Again, without having it in front of me, not knowing the cap ramifications or the dead cap, but you're going to have to say goodbye to a lot of big names, right? But to do so, when you have Justin Herbert coming into his own in arguably the top 5 quarterback in the NFL, you need to provide weapons, right? The defense has tons of holes. I like Johnny Newton here for this team a lot. I don't know if I'm on board with Johnny Newton being the first defensive player taken off the board. I also don't know if 6, this might be a little bit rich for me to take an interior defensive lineman. I like the player. Might be a little bit rich. I'm going to stay on the offensive side of the ball. And I don't know if Keenan Allen's coming back. I know Keenan Allen operates his majority out of the slot. I'm going to give what I think is the best prospect to play in the slot coming out of this draft class. He's also a hell of a blocker at tight end. That's Brock Bowers. Yeah, listen, Brock, I told you before, I think Brock Bowers can justifiably hold that generational talent. What he does, a full route tree, the hands, the double moves, the innate, what he's gonna run ridiculously fast. He's an absolute beast of a blocker, all at 240, 245 pounds. He's going to gain a little bit of weight, but he can play that big slot role that we see NFL offenses, endearing to, so on and so forth, so much more. We see what Dalton Kincaid has done in Buffalo. That role would suit Brock Bowers perfectly, and in turn give Justin Herbert a reliable outlet, as well as a reliable weapon that can run past linebackers and safeties up the seam or break off routes. People are going to say 6 is too high for a tight end. Look at Kyle Pitts. Look at all these guys, all these other top 10 tight ends that have come and really haven't held their weight, when it comes to their draft status. I think Brock Bowers is different. So Brock Bowers is the pick for me.
Yeah. I mean, I love this. And ultimately, I think him or Rome make a lot of sense here. It just comes down to, in a world where they keep Keenan Allen, maybe they lean Odunze because they already got a guy to work the middle of the field in the slot.
Yep.
Another world where they keep Williams, I think Brock Bowers is the perfect guy to kind of fill that middle of the field space eater. So
yep.
I'm cool with either one here. If I had to guess, I think they keep Keenan and then find a way to move on from Mike, just because it's like, who's played a few more games the last couple of years? Which one's like a Charger legend? Maybe. But it could go either way, because you could also say, well, Mike Williams is younger.
Again, off the top of my head, I think it's a little bit more cost effective or cost conscious if they move on from Keenan, which is why I chose to go that way. You could be right. It could be, they keep Keenan and move out, move to an outside receiver, and then hope they develop Quentin Johnson into something else, and then you have Rome Odunze and Quentin Johnson.
Yeah. So. And I mean, the only way really to fully kind of move that money forward for Mike Williams is probably like a 3-year extension, which then you get into the question of like, does Keenan Allen play 3 more years at a high level? Like, I don't know.
At 33 years old, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a tough decision either way, but no matter where you go here, Odunze, Bowers, I love it. And if I had to make a prediction, I'm buying into all the Chargers head coaching hype. And right now it's on Jim Harbaugh. So I think that would be an awesome move for LA.
Great. And Tennessee Titans, my friend.
Okay, here we go. Well, I think this one is really simple. I mean, this team needs a receiver too, so like, trust me, Odunze's a great play here. They just have got to get this O-line straight. I'm going to go Joe Alt. He's been my OT1 this whole cycle. Yeah. I like Olu a ton. I just think Alt's a more well-balanced guy, especially for a team that wants to run the ball and has, with even just an average offensive line, I think there's an argument to be made that Henry plus Tajay Spears might be the best running back tandem in the league. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but given the offensive line they've had and given their production, they're making a lot happen with a little. I think Joe Alt could really change that. And there's other pieces on that O-line to fix, but I look at the 49ers. They run behind one guy pretty much all the time, and it's Trent Williams. And I'm not saying Joe Alt's going to be Trent Williams. He's not that athletically off the charts, but man, so technically refined. Had 4 penalties on over 2,100 snaps at Notre Dame. Guy's a machine. I think his hand placement's cleaned up a lot too. I think this is the guy that like paves the way forward. If they keep Henry, great. If not, Spears running behind Alt, that's an encouraging start.
Yeah, and I'm glad you talked about Alt. And you said that he's been your OT1 this whole cycle. He's mine too. And I get a lot of pushback on that. And again, that's no disrespect to Olufoshanu. I just think that Joe Alt, first off, I think he has a much higher floor. And then what he does, I mean, he's an absolute mauler, a wrecker in the run game. He just plays with such physicality at the point of attack. He's agile enough laterally to move and get into that second level and block. There's not a lot that Joe Alt does bad. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's not a lot that he does bad. Now, it leaves me up with the next pick, and I'm not going to hesitate, and I'm going to take Olufoshanu for the Jets. Yeah. And I'm going to talk about him compared to Alt a little bit because they are both phenomenal prospects. I'm going to say that, out loud. And as a Jet fan, I would be completely smitten with either of them, right? I would be smitten with either of them. I will say this. I think Olufoshanu, he'll be 21, when the season starts as well. Young, still developing into his body. But you can't teach that athleticism and that length that he has and his ability, proper footwork. He's got he's got long strides. So he gets back into his kick step and he gets back into his set real quick. He gets his hands on you first, it's over. He mirrors very well. I mean, very technically sound against the pass. I think that there's still some room to grow as a run blocker, which is fine. If I had a tackle who had a sky-high ceiling, and one of those two sides needed a little bit of to be coached up or improved as time, I'd rather take the pure pass protector and let him develop in the run blocker. And it's just little things like, I don't really think he drives or continues. He doesn't move bodies. He's not a people mover like Joe Alt or Talisi Fuaga or so on and so forth. He doesn't keep those legs driving in some of those, those gap of those man blocking sets when he's in a phone booth one-on-one. I think that's where he's got to improve. But man, he can protect the passer and he gets into those sets and with those long arms and it's a thing of beauty. It really is. Head plays on a swivel. He's smart. He's intelligent. And like you said about Neighbors, he's young and he's already kind of been a college dominator. So the ceiling is sky high on him. Olufoshanu is a pick for the Jets.
Yeah, and I think Olu would have been a top 10 pick last year, even after just 1 year starting and being 19 years old. So no reason for me to change my mind there. You hit the nail on the head. He just got strength issues for me. When it comes to the run game, but also like JT Tuimoloau, getting into his chest, and it's like, could be. He's got long arms, so it doesn't happen often. But the guys who can kind of combat that and have long arms in their own right, he's gonna have to learn how to hand fight those counters, because if he beats it to the punch and he gets in your chest first, you're cooked. But those guys who can set him up and can counter and then counter move on him and then and get Olu kind of leaning one way or striking low, which he has a tendency to do. The hand placement's not always perfect, especially after the initial contact with those counters. That's stuff that you would hope an NFL team is going to get coached up, right? Those are the skills, the technical skills that can be refined. The weight stuff, I agree with you wholeheartedly. He's a big boy, but he could still pack on some more weight, and that's going to give him functional strength to hopefully, fix some of these, tendencies that you see with him in the run game. But with the hole that the Jets have on the offensive line, left tackle especially is the place to go. I don't expect Mekhi Becton back. Olufoshanu is going to be there, hopefully for the next 15 years. And that's where I almost think that the tackle combination here worked out better. Like, we'll see what happens in Tennessee with Mike Vrabel. I know there's been rumors about him being pissed off and not liking the situation, but Alt matches more of, I think, what they want to do, win through the ground and things like that, kind of that old school mean streak.
Yep.
And then Olu going to the team that just had a guy pop his Achilles after 4 snaps. Give me that guy with off the chart mirroring ability and keep my freaking ankle clean. I think it worked out. And plus, he's 21, like we had talked about with Neighbors. Like, by the time he's 25, if you told me Olu's packed on 15 pounds of muscle, I'd be like, yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah,
totally buy into that. So I think it kind of worked out perfect here for both sides, which then sets up Atlanta here at 9. I'm going to go ahead and make a trade here. And this is one where if I could manifest one draft landing spot, I think this might end up being the one that I want the most. I'm going to have the Falcons trade back. I'm going to have the Vikings move up from 12. It's a little bit of an overpay per draft tag, but we're not using these picks, so I don't mind spending frivolously here. It's going to be a third this year and a future third for the Vikings, moving up 3 spots. Don't even need to force the trade, it looks like. Yep, I figured Atlanta would jump all over that. This is going to be my guy, Michael Penix, coming off the board here. Got to find a long-term answer in Minnesota. I could see a world where they maybe run it back one more time with Kirk Cousins just because maybe discounted price with the Achilles injury, maybe. I could also see him trying to go to a team like Pittsburgh, sign a 2-3 year deal, get a bunch of guaranteed money, go compete and win right now. Could totally see that. But here I think this is a chance for the Vikings, who have some salary cap, issues and some big spending decisions up ahead. Get cheaper at quarterback, get a guy for 5 years worth of control. And I mean, at Washington, we've seen like you just let him be the trigger man and let him run a high functioning offense with sick receivers around him. He's going to make it happen.
Yeah.
And this would be one of those spots where it's like, okay, well, he had a Roma Dunze, he had a Jalen McMillan, he had, a Jalen Polk there. Okay, what's he going to look like without those guys? Well, given Justin Jefferson might be the most talented receiver in the league right now, and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson. I mean, pretty much a pretty similar environment. Plus, you got Kevin O'Connell calling plays there.
Yeah.
And ultimately, my selling point for Penix is like, you don't see these guys come around often that have this combination of I want to play aggressive and I have the downfield touch to be able to push the ball deep down the field. And that's what I want to do, but also doesn't take sacks and has a pretty good time to throw. You just do not see that combination often. So I'm looking at a guy with like 30 sacks over 6 years, doesn't hold on the ball long, but still understands like we win games by pushing the ball down the field. To me, it's like that's a perfect combo. So put him in that offense with that play caller, with those receivers. God, if I could make one thing happen, this is it.
Yeah, listen. I mean, you make a valid argument, and I know that you already said Penix has been your third quarterback this whole cycle. I'd be curious to see if you really made it up in the top 10. It makes sense. Yeah. I get it, and like you said, I think Michael Penix in that West Coast timing thing where he could push the ball vertically with the guys that can get there. If not, he sits there and hits his his slants and his little outs and his little comebackers and his hooks in timing. That's the kind of offense that you want Michael Penix in if he's going to really succeed. Listen, it makes complete sense. Might be a little rich for my blood. Makes complete sense. Makes complete sense. I like it. And listen, Atlanta, absolutely, you're going to make that move 10 out of 10 times, right? Unless Atlanta had their eyes on Michael Penix, which we'll find out in a couple picks, right? We'll find out if they're looking quarterback in a couple picks.
And I know Falcons fans are going to be like, what the hell, dude? We need a quarterback. What'd you do that for? I just don't – I'm functioning with the idea that Arthur Smith's back for one more year. I think it's going to end up happening. We'll see. I could totally be wrong on that. It's just a gut feeling. But if he's there, I don't think Penix is a guy that fits with him as much as he would with Kevin O'Connell and how they want to operate things. So that was why I trade out of a pick where a team that needs a quarterback gives another team a quarterback. Had to explain.
I gotcha. And that leaves me on the clock back with the Bears. We know that they started with Marvin Harrison, and we're probably going to move to the other side of the ball here. There are some quarterbacks here that I think make sense, and there might be some of these teams that come calling. The Broncos, the Raiders, the Falcons, they might want to, even the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks is a sneaky play for a quarterback here. Are these guys willing to come up and take a fourth quarterback in the top 10? I don't know. I don't know if Bo Nix really moves the needle that much for me. I think he fits. He would fit very, very well in Denver. I really like that. I really like that match a lot. And even in Atlanta as well. But I'm gonna stay with Chicago. I'm between two guys here. I know they paid Jalen Johnson. I'd love to get him a running mate on the opposite side. In that Eberflus offense, but I think you also got to address the interior and put somebody on the other side, the pass rush to help or aid the pass rush. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Jared Verse. Jared Verse is my edge one in this class. I know he's a little bit of an older prospect, but what he can offer you, a little bit of down year from last year, but the relentlessness, the get off, the conversion from speed to power, I think, and he's a little bit bigger, can set that edge and hold the line a little bit bigger on the edge. I think it pairs very well with what they're looking to do on that defense. Now you got two good edge guys. You spent some capital, mid-round capital in the middle of that interior of the defense. Johnny Newton would make some sense here too. I thought about it, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lock down the opposite edge. And now they got two viable, good edge rushers in that Eberflus offense Eberflus defense to go get at the quarterback.
Yeah, I love this pick. Whether this was Latu, Verse, or Dallas Turner, I think they all perfectly can play that kind of like 4-3 edge, kick him out, play some wide 9 with him, and then Sweat plus Verse. I mean, that's an awesome run stuffing tandem right there on the edge. And Gervon Dexter really picking it up over the last half of the season. He's like third highest amount of pressures from any interior defensive lineman. Like the guy is really kind of hitting his gear. So all of a sudden that defensive line in Chicago looks pretty scary, especially if Eberflus is back and calling plays. I think he's been a big part of the reason this defense turned around too. So I love this pick. I love this pick.
And that leaves you with the Raiders.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking, I'm like, oh man, now we get into JJ McCarthy conversations and conversations. Yeah, because 5 in the top 10, I don't think is impossible. I definitely don't. And then now you get to this run of teams where Raiders, they draft a quarterback, no one's surprised. Falcons, what you hit on. Broncos, what you hit on, all make total sense. And now I'm like, okay, who wants to trade up? And then I'll just go ahead and throw this out. Seattle, I definitely think it makes some sense. And if we had done a 2-rounder, I was going to make the last pick Seattle trading to that selection and taking Cam Ward. I think if they don't round 1, they could go round 2, round 3 somewhere, probably closer to round 3 territory for Ward, where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to have the conversation. So since we're not doing a second round, let's just go ahead and float that out here. If you're a Seahawks fan, let it be known, would Cam Ward be your guy potentially for the future? Would you be into that? Not just for the region wise, but I think you can kind of make that work. Anyways, let's get back here to the Raiders. Man, this team, I think the defense is outperforming what it should be with names on paper. So ton of credit there to their DC, Patrick Graham. I think he's one of the more underrated coordinators in the league.
I agree.
Now we get into a spot where quarterback makes a lot of sense. I'm not fully there on Nick and McCarthy. They're more mid-first round guys here versus 11. You're kind of teetering on that territory. I think they've kind of made some headway in regards to edge. Corner, I think, is really intriguing. I'm just kind of buying myself time. Oh, man. I think you got to go quarterback here. I'd love to go Cooper DeJean or Nate Wiggins here, my top slot, my top outside corner. I'd love those guys a ton. I think it packs up that defense. They got Nate Wiggins, so maybe they don't need to go DeJean. I'll go ahead and make the pick, Bo Nix, because Aiden O'Connell's a fun preseason player, cool for a day 3 selection. But if you're trotting him out to start next year, that's probably a bit of an issue. Maybe this team gets in on a potential Fields trade. Maybe they're in on a God forbid, a Russell Wilson. No disrespect to Russ, he's had his time. But I'll go with here and say that they're going to look towards a younger option, more long-term piece versus trying to find a veteran and piece in the long.
Yeah, listen, I get it, and I don't know what Jimmy G's contract is, but what I do know is, as much as I respect the young kid, I don't know if Aiden O'Connell's the answer. So whether you do it now, whether you bite the bullet now, or you do it next year or 2 years when you might have some mediocre seasons under your belt, right. I think if they're gonna either make the decision and bring back Antonio Pierce as the head coach, and whoever the interim GM is, if you're going to keep those guys, let them pick their guy and run with it. And if not, if those aren't the guys, you're going to bring in a new GM and a coach who are going to want to pick their guy and run with it. So listen, this is what we would do. This is our ideas, and Bo Nix is going to there's going to be arguments between Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy on who's the next quarterback taken off the board. But like we talked about, there's a run of teams here that it just makes sense if they go ahead and pluck their quarterback.
Yeah, and I think that's why if it kind of does still make sense for McCarthy to declare for sure, and then Ewers too. Like there's a world where he kind of showed some immaturity, some inconsistency in the college football playoff, but also is he getting past top 16?
Yeah.
Probably not, so why pass on that? So it's tough. And then to your point, the Raiders they're so tough to draft for because I think Antonio Pierce is the guy that is going to be head coach next year. And that means like, I have no idea what this tendency, like, what is he looking for? Like, I have no idea. Am I basing off what he played with as a player? That doesn't seem logical. So we don't have, like with Frank Reich in Carolina, you're like, feels like Stroud's his guy because he likes those big, tall, strong arm guys. Like makes a world of sense. They go in a different direction because the owner, but we don't really have that with Pierce. So that's what makes the Raiders so tough.
No, but you know what? Pierce it seems like he's won the locker room. Like these guys love him. They talk highly about him, and they want to play for Pierce. But
and then the Lions with Dan Campbell, kind of that same energy and persona, just clinched their first division in 30 years. So I think the Raiders are going to be like, yeah, see, it works. We don't need like an X's and O guy. We need a guy to lead this locker room. So I think it's Pierce next year.
Yeah. That leaves me up on the clock with the Falcons. I just wanted to check something real quick. Yeah, I am tempted. I don't know how I feel about Clark Phillips running opposite AJ Terrell. So cornerback is on the option, but I'm going to go with my original gut. Listen, they're going to need a Calais Campbell replacement, somebody to play that, defensive tackle, defensive end in that odd front. To me, there's probably no one better here than Johnny Newton, right? He can play the 3 tech. He can play the 5 tech outside. Strong and stout against the run, active enough to push the pocket vertically from that spot, from the outside. Hell, you can even take all 285 pounds of Johnny Newton, put him outside, and let him rush wide 9 in a couple plays, and wouldn't hurt you. Like I said, he's flexible. He's a piece that I think would work good opposite Arnold Ebiketie in that in that pass rush scheme in Atlanta. Like I said, I would love. To me, I think Nate Wiggins playing him, lining him up opposite AJ Terrell, the Clemson boys at home, makes a lot of sense. But I don't know how you're going to replace Calais Campbell if he does not come back. You're just too big of a hole in the defensive line. This is the area where I think Johnny Newton's going to go. So he's found his home in Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, he was my preseason IDL 1. I think right now he's at 3 for me. So, like, let me ask you a follow-up to that. Like,
okay,
I've seen a ton of Grady Jarrett comps for Byron Murphy, and I'm not a huge comp guy. I don't really like buying them. They're whatever to me.
Yeah,
but like Byron Murphy, thoughts on him as a potential like?
Yeah, no, I definitely that. It's funny you thought about that because I was actually contemplating moving down. I was scanning the board. I was scanning the board to say, okay, who could really come up here and grab, just say Roma Dunze, and it's like Buffalo makes a whole lot of sense. If I move down there, moving to 24, who could, if I wanted to go there, like I think personally, I think Byron Murphy's phenomenal. I also like Braylon Trice in that role too. I think he could play that role really, really well. So I thought about that. I don't know how I grade those guys out against Johnny Newton in that role for this team. It's going to be a coin flip. I'm comfortable with Johnny Newton. And listen, even if they attacked free agency and brought in another big body, you know what? You can play him in an even front. You can play him at 3 tech, and he's still going to probably, have the, pressure the quarterback from the interior, be solid enough against the run. Johnny Newton's a really, really good player. Murphy's really good. I love Tavondre Sweat. I think there's some defensive interiors on this in this cycle that kind of really excite me. I'm a huge fan of Ruka Rohoro. So So I think also he's a perfect 5 tech odd man, like defensive end and an odd man front as well. This might be a little bit too rich for a guy like Rook, but Johnny Newton, you're an Atlanta Falcon. TEEJ, you got the Saints. Which way you going?
I thought about having
so many different ways here too.
Yeah, I know, because and I get all the time on my mocks. Saints fans are like, "Give us a quarterback for the love of God." Derek Carr's not it, and I'm like, "Trust me, dude. I hear you. I see you. I have watched Derek Carr this year. That man is rough right now. I don't know what he turned into after that wild card run under Rich Bisaccia. This man's turned a bad leaf." But that being said, I got to go Roma Dunze here. And I thought about having Cincy trade up because I just don't know what they're going to do with Higgins. Like in one world, it makes all the sense in the world. Like, pay your guy, like just get him back. Him and Chase, it's been good. Like, don't mess up anything. And if they do end up losing out on him, some other team forks up too much of a bag. Odunze is like a T. Higgins replacement. A lot of fun there. But
Yeah.
also think about like who could be a great Michael Thomas replacement. Rome Odunze. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and make Rome the pick here. And part of the reason this team's been in salary cap hell is, well, for a lot of reasons, but Michael Thomas, I mean, has been a big part of that, just kind of pushing his money along, and he's just kind of become a bigger part of it. Don't think he's back next year. Rome plus Olave, 2 cheap receivers for the next year or so, and then you pay Olave. And I think that's hopefully a way to spark Derek Carr. Maybe you make a change of play caller. I feel like it's gotten a little bit better from a schematic standpoint the last like 3 weeks. Yeah. But this could be a way to hopefully see Derek Carr get back on track. Also, like his dead cap next year is $50 million. So
yeah, he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere.
I just don't know what you do with that.
Yeah. For some reason, Mickey Loomis and the Saints have figured out the way to proverbially kick the can down the road just long enough. At some point, they're gonna have to pay the piper.
Yeah.
Right. At some point, you're just gonna. I mean, Tampa's going through it this year, right? They had to buckle down and swallow all that future money that they gave, or the Tom Brady, retirement money, and so on and so forth. At some point, the Saints are going to have to do it. They figured out a way how to go this far without it. So,
yeah. Well, it's also interesting because like his contract is not necessarily 1-for-1, but very similar in a lot of situations to Russell Wilson. And even the Broncos gave him a second year, just because at that point, like if you moved on from Russell Wilson prior to this season, how do you feel the rest of your team with all that dead money? So maybe by year 3 of that Carr contract, you're still saying, hey, we got to eat $35 million, but that's better than 50. So now's the time. So I think you stick with Carr one more year, take Odunze here at 13, keep those weapons around him.
Yeah. And that leaves me up with the Broncos and in a precarious situation, because to me, I think Rome Odunze is a perfect fit in Denver. I don't know if they're going to run it back with Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton and all that. I don't think they're bringing the gang all back. Cortland Sutton, probably his contract is going to preclude them moving on from him, unless they get rid of Russ and just decide to, take their hits next year and kind of refocus and restructure. Probably more so Jerry Jeudy's gone. So I thought Rome Rome would be a good fit. All right. Then I look at the tackles there. And Mike McGlinchey, to me, at right tackle, might have been the worst free agent signing of the cycle in 2023. Yeah. It was pretty bad. Garrett Bowles, he's a free agent as well. You don't know if he's coming back. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a tackle. I'm going to take J.C. Latham. Okay. And here's why I'm going to take J.C. Latham. I have Talisi Fuaga. Actually, personally, he's my Fuaga's my OT3. But I think Latham, of the guy between him and Fuaga, of the guys that could go off the board in this area, I think he has the best chance to transition over to the left tackle in case you got to step in and play for Garrett Bowles at left tackle and deal with Mike McGlinchey now. And then at worst, you have, you're free of Mike McGlinchey's awful contract. You can get out of it next year. And then you have J.C. Latham come in and do the run. He's the strongest man in this draft class, period, end of sentence. He's a physical beast. He's got some work to do still. He's not as developed as a pass blocker as he is as a run blocker. But he is what we talked about before, what Olu's not. He is that mover of people. He will just pave a way, pave a path for any running back, for any, he blocks it with this physical, like, killer mentality that I just absolutely adore. Still got some work to do on the pass sets, kind of, again, not the most accurate with his hand strikes, fights a little low, strikes a little low. And that allows people to get up into his chest. Like a big guy at 350 pounds like that shouldn't see being driven back in the quarterback, but you see that too much. He loses a leverage battle at times. He's not accurate with his hand strikes. I think there's a little bit of development that has to go on there. But like I said, of the tackles left on the board, outside Jordan Morgan, I don't know how you feel about Jordan Morgan. I think Jordan Morgan's first rounder. Outside Jordan Morgan, I think J.C. Latham's probably the one that can transition to the left side the easiest. So that's why he's my pick.
Sure. Yeah. And if you were to go left tackle, well, I like Suamataia a lot too. But him, Morgan, Patrick Paul, Morgan and Paul are both guys to me. It's like late first, I'm cool with it. Second rounder, cool. I can dig that value.
Yeah. Paul's not. Well, I'm not that. I see Paul a little bit differently. the lack of athleticism really gets
That's
me
what I'm
with
saying.
Ball.
I would see mocks where he's like going 13 to the Packers or whatever, like a few weeks
Yeah.
ago. I'm like, he's just not. That's not going to happen. Like
Yeah,
in
yeah,
a athletic, entertainment league like that. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. He does have pterodactyl wings for arms. Don't get me wrong, unique build for sure, but like just not there athletically. So that's where it's like, if Dallas takes him at the end of the first round, cool.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Like
Yeah.
plug and play guy makes a lot of sense. But yeah, any earlier than that, it's tough. And Latham's a really frustrating prospect because he should be my OT3 because his ceiling is OT3. Like it really is pretty comfortably. It's just, God, when he loses, it's just like, man, like what is going? It's really weird the wide range of spectrum you get with Latham. Like a guy that has all the strength in the world, but gets upended on the biggest play of Alabama's season and becomes the guy who trips up Villanova. And it's like, why did that happen?
Yeah.
He's also got a ton of penalty issues, not only holdings, but also like 7 false starts the last 2 years. It's like,
yeah, but I'm gonna defend him on that because that I think plays into that aggressive nature that he has. Sure. Where he's so amped up and anxious to get off the ball that he might jump. I don't think it's I think that has a lot to do with being coached up and kind of just like, hey, stay in the moment or whatever, or like like sit boy, like you tell your dogs, like heel. You know what I mean? Right. Just stay back. So yeah, listen, I love Latham. I really do. I think he's a work in progress, but he's a work in progress that I think can learn on the fly, on the job. Like if you had to play JC Latham, I don't think you're gonna listen. I don't think you're getting an all-pro talent coming into the league, but I also don't think you're going to get what we saw in Evan Neal year 2 for the Giants. You know what I mean?
Right. So then we get to the Seattle Seahawks. This is tough here because I kind of thought about the edge guys.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, Maffei's taking a step forward. You're going to have Uchenna Nwosu hopefully healthy next year. And then Derek Hall, you already used a second-round pick. So I'm going to ultimately wait. I'm going to say no edge here. This is also a team that could desperately use like a Graham Barton, Troy Fautano. Like that would be like the perfect fit. You keep him up there in the Northwest. It make him play left guard. Awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure about the value at 15 for that. So I'm going to trade back a little bit. I'm going to have the Pittsburgh Steelers, my favorite team, go ahead and come up. It's only about 150-point difference is what I'm seeing here. I'll go ahead and say the Steelers move up, and it costs them their third rounder at pick 82 to go up 3 spots. I'll go ahead and force the trade just to make it happen. I don't have the Pittsburgh Steelers draft one of my favorite prospects. He is now declared, and hopefully he's healthy for the combine, Cooper DeJean. This guy could put up some insane numbers, like things that you see legitimately in like old school, like when you got to do the combine and like those Madden games and you just like did it so many times that you were so good at it. Like Cooper DeJean might have it down. All-world athlete in so many different sports. And I am probably higher on the importance of a slot corner than most. So that's where I want to see DeJean play.
Yeah.
And I just look, I have to watch the Steelers every week. And it's just ton of open, middle of the field stuff. And I think DeJean, if he took away some of those easy throws between the hashes or just you look at the NFL, like the Cowboys leveraging CeeDee Lamb as a slot receiver, and a lot of other teams doing the same thing. Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit. If he's just playing man coverage, Steelers top 10 team in man coverage usage. If he's the guy to take away that type of target, I think he's got the coverage ability to do that. He showed that at Iowa while playing on the outside. I would just move him inside because he's a great tackler. He's an awesome athlete. I just want him at the center of the gravity of the defense, essentially. Him plus Minka. That could be a really opportunistic secondary. And of course, hopefully year 2 jump from JPJ.
Yeah. See, I love the pick and I love the fit for Pittsburgh. I absolutely do. I think of DeJean more like coming in to work opposite Minka as kind of that, that split safety box guy.
That too.
You know what I mean? Absolutely. But I think he can handle himself I think he can be kind of like that Brian Branch-esque, it's your safety, it's your slot nickel. He can probably do both. I think Cooper DeJean, obviously, what he offers in the return game is ridiculous. He shows that he's athletic. I don't know how reactive he is. That's what I got off his tape. So I didn't think he could hang. I didn't think he can hang at the next level, playing, boundary cornerback. So the move to me is, ideally kind of that split safety next to Minka, or like you said, up on the slot in the nickel. I think it's a perfect fit. He's going to make an NFL team better, no matter where you put him. Similar to Brian Branch, in the sense of like he was one of my favorite prospects that I've ever scouted, and people said, oh, he's a free safety, he's a true deep middle center fielder. Some say he's going to be a box. He's nothing more than a jack or a box safety. Some are going to like, and look what he's done. He's just wherever you put him. You put him in the nickel, fine. He plays the slot. He plays the slot. He plays some reps, in the box as that, as that big nickel linebacker, that hybrid. He does well there. I think that's kind of the role that Cooper DeJean's going to find himself in.
Yeah, totally. And I agree with that to a complete T. And really, I think he's going to destroy the 40. So I'm not really worried about that. I want to know his 3-cone. Because if I'm going to have him move the slot, I need to know that he can keep up with someone who is as shifty as like a CeeDee Lamb, just as an example, or even like an Amon-Ra St. Brown, quicker rather than fast.
Yeah.
And so he's not quite as big as like a Kyle Hamilton, but Kyle Hamilton got a ton of flack for the 42nd percentile. But the 3-cone's closer to 70th percentile. And to me, you kind of see that a little bit, especially when he's like used as a tight end eraser. You can kind of see that coverage ability. And I'm also a Notre Dame fan, so like big Kyle Hamilton believer from the jump. So if as long as he checks out and that 3-cone's there, I love the idea of just keeping him in the center of that defense, strong safety slot type, especially for Pittsburgh, who needs it.
Yeah. No, love the pick. Not who I thought you were coming up for. Not gonna lie, thought you were gonna go a different way, but this is aggressive and I love it. And that leaves me on the board with the Bengals. I always try to figure out a way. I don't see the Bengals trading up into the top 10, but to me, Brock Bowers to the Bengals would be such a match made in heaven. I haven't yet figured out a way that he falls to 16. I guess that's more doable than the Bengals trading up into the top 10 for a tight end. So it just hasn't really panned out for me yet. They're going to have to listen. Wide receivers got to be in the on the table in the discussion, right? They could tag. They have a lot of salary cap flexibility, so they could just tag Higgins, but that's going to cost you whatever it costs you. Arguably $25 million, $26 million. Jamar Chase is coming up for contract. Tyler Boyd is not under contract, so you're going to have to bring bodies in. Charlie Jones, nice player. Don't know if he can take every single one of Tyler Boyd's snaps in the slot. So, tackle. What happens at tackle? Tulisa Fuaga is sitting here, in your face. Do you just jump on that, right side and get your right tackle for the future? There's holes in the defense, right? I still think the defensive backfield needs some help. God, I'm tempted. I'm you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to go the wide receiver route. Okay. I'm going to go the wide. No, I can't. I'm going to go to All Reliable. I'm going to get my right tackle of the future, and I'm going to get Tulisi Fuaga. The value of it is too good. Listen, there's guys that I think would be phenomenal in that Cincinnati offensive scheme, like a guy like A.D. Mitchell, to stretch the field outside opposite of Jamar Chase, who's working, everything else in the, in the middle and underneath, makes a lot of sense. But you get a guy like Tulisi Fuaga, who is legitimately probably one of the, 4 or 5 plug and play offensive linemen that could go this high. What he can do for you, dominant run blocker, sufficient enough and strong enough, has that weight room strength that transfers very well to the football field, long enough that I think he can stay at right tackle. And then if, even if that doesn't, if you find that those short strides and those kick steps and that unstableness in his pass sets kind of hurts, you move him inside and you got an all-world guard. Tulisi Fuaga is going to be the pick for me. Now they don't have to worry about searching for another bookend tackle. They paid for one in free agency last year. You can let what's the guy's name from Alabama who they got there now? I can't think of his name. The tackle, Cincinnati. Oh, good Lord.
At right tackle. Oh, Jonah Williams. Sorry.
Jonah Williams. Yeah. Now you can let Jonah Williams walk and test free agency. And you got a replacement, probably better right off the bat for a lot cheaper, right?
Yeah. I think that's the move. And ultimately, Fuaga is the guy that, like, every time you see him there, especially for the Bengals, it's like, God, it just solves that problem. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that PFF charted down to this specific, but they have like different grades for gap scheme plays versus zone. The man who, like, a lot of people will point out, like, is he nimble enough? Can he fit into a wide zone scheme? 91 plus run or grade overall in a zone blocking scheme, which if your main concern is his movement skills, clearly he's showing I got it. So I love this plug and play, but dude, I gotta piggyback on it. I'm looking at the receivers and I'm like, dude, Brian Thomas Jr., you throw another LSU guy in
Yeah.
there. Keon Coleman, after what they did with T. Higgins route running, they could probably workshop that with him, or shoot, even someone else like an AD Mitchell, like you said, Xavier Legette. Like, oh my gosh, the possibilities are kind of endless. That's where, like, if you need receiver, maybe you wait to the second round, you get another guy like that, and kind of address T. Higgins.
Yeah, because some of those guys are going to fall. Like, not all of them, but like, there's a chance that you can, you'll get a shot at Troy Franklin, at maybe Xavier Legette, maybe Xavier Worthy or something like that in the second round, where the drop off isn't that much,
Not as
right?
steep. Right?
Go secure a bookend tackle, protect your big investment in Joe Cool, and worry about the receiver in second round.
Totally. And there's a world where they get Higgins back, right? And then, hopefully Charlie Jones steps in and he becomes Tyler Boyd of the future. Or maybe him and Andre Yoshivas both kind of play that slot role. So
yeah, true.
I think it could still work out. But let me get to the Cardinals, man. And I am torn between Dallas Turner and Nate Wiggins here. I think I'm going to go Nate Wiggins. He's right now my outside corner one. I love guys that I'm seeing just that upward progression. Young guy, high-end athlete, great frame. And the reason I decided not to go Turner here, which when it comes to like my overall big board, I think Turner's going to edge out Wiggins. I look at their next pick at 36, and I'm like, that's a perfect spot to draft an Adisa Isaac type. Like that, like he's not quite a first rounder good, but like you can plug this guy in right away and be pretty happy with it. Also, they've gotten production out of BJ Ojolari. Dennis Gardeck, has turned somewhat of a corner. You got the San Diego State kid, Cam Thomas. So you got enough bodies there that I'm okay with. I look at their outside corner spot, and I'm like, not so much. So let's go ahead and plug in Nate Wiggins. Him and Garrett Williams, who I actually did like a lot out of Syracuse. Long, lanky, athletic guys to play on the outside. I'm a big fan. I know Williams has been playing some slot, but I think long-term it'd be Wiggins and Williams on the outside.
Yeah, Wiggins right now, I go back and forth with him and Kool-Aid. I think they, I think Kool-Aid to me is... Yeah, actually, with Terry and Arnold also. Like, I go back to the three of them. I juggle the three of them between three. I like the athletic profile that Nate Wiggins has. I think Kool-Aid is good as well. I think he's going to be a little bit more. Nate Wiggins, I think, is going to fit that Jonathan Gannon defense a little bit more. Very versatile. Can press up, can play in the zone, so on and so forth. I like his athletic profile a little bit more than the other guys. I think Terry Arnold is probably, and this is just me, is probably going to be a nickel or slot corner in the NFL, and I think he's going to be phenomenal slot corner. One of the best in the league right from the get-go. But I juggle between those three. I like this fit of Nate Wiggins to Arizona and Jonathan Gannon defense a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, I actually break up my position. I don't put guys I think will play slot the next level in my corner rankings. That's why DeJean's my slot one, and then Terry Arnold's my slot two. I didn't even have him in the outside corner room. He might be big enough, and his arm length might not be an issue where he can play outside. But I'd love the idea of his change of direction skills right there with Kalen King for me, like best of the second. And then we'll see about DeJean.
Yeah,
the rest of his athletic profile says it should be off the charts, but we'll have to wait and see. But like Arnold and King, their change of direction skills are just absurd. And King with a tough year, Arnold with a great year, it kind of makes an easy sell there playing on the inside.
And that leaves me up with Seattle, but it's not going to be for long because I'm going to move down again with them. I'm going to move.
That's a total John Schneider move.
Yeah. Listen, here's what, and I'm gonna walk through this with you and with everyone else who's watching this and give you my rationale. I like a guy like do they bring back Leonard Williams for next year? If not, they're gonna need another kind of tweener edge tackle, and I think Braylon Trice would be a great fit in there. Braylon Trice is my edge too. He's my defensive end too in this class. I love the guy. I think he's a perfect fit here. But I also think that the interior of the offensive line might take precedent. So I think if I move down with a team that might want to get up in front of teams like Jacksonville and the Colts and possibly even the Buccaneers, teams that could be in the market for a wide receiver, I'm going to trade up with and the Chiefs have been known to go get their guys. So I'm going to go ahead and trade down with the Chiefs. Wrong spot.
And that kind of sets up Seattle in a perfect spot to draft Troy 5 top.
Or exactly, they can take their best interior there, or if Braylon Trice falls,
Which
it's still a conversation.
That's a great shout, not just for like the regional stuff. I think that's what everyone kind of just defaults to, but like he's the power rusher they don't have.
That's it.
Like
That's
Boye
it.
Mafe wins with speed and bend, and that's kind of Derek Hall with a little bit of arm length in there.
And
like,
I think that
like
if you don't bring back Leo Williams, I think that Trice at 278 pounds can bounce inside and outside.
Yeah.
And he's like he plays. I just love to watch him play. He plays football like I want my kids to play football.
Yeah,
just
right,
like
right,
100% all the time. Just go get them. Kind of like oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Who's the Max Crosby? Kind of like Max Crosby. Like I'm not. That's not a comp. But I'm saying that's the way that he plays is just always constant. Aiden Hutchinson, another guy, just constant effort all the time. I see that in Braylon Trice, and to me, those are the kind of players that I like. So I'm going to go ahead and trade up here. I think 7 picks here. I can probably get away with adding a third here, and I'm going to force that through. And Kansas City's on the board. And Kansas City needs, I think, if anything shows now is what their wide receiving core has kind of sort of let them down in a little, for lack of better, right? Kadarius Toney, I thought was always just nothing more than a good, like, gadgety kind of guy. I mean, you might have something in Rashee Rice, and I got to tip my cap to the kid because I was probably on the, Rashee Rice stinks train for too long. I didn't like his tape last year coming out. I watched him in the Senior Bowl. I thought he was sluggish. He was a guy that just completely I dropped down. And listen, he showed up and showed out this year. But outside of that, Sky Moore is Mecole Hardman. They traded back. They didn't use him. Sky Moore has kind of just disappeared. You need somebody. You need somebody that can, that you need somebody that can take some of the pressure off of Travis Kelce. So give me a guy who's big. Give me a guy who can move. Give me a guy who your prototypical X that can still go up and get the ball. Give me a guy like Brian Thomas Jr., who at 6'4" can still beat you vertically, can still go up and win the 50-50s, is agile enough, is fast enough to run just about whatever route you need him to. He's the anti-wide receiver that the Kansas City Chiefs has right now. He offers that skill set that there and physical abilities that team kind of lacks right now. So he's the guy that I think if you have Travis Kelce still dominating in the middle of the field, you have your gadgety guys here and there. You can put Rashee Rice, at the Z and put Brian Thomas at the X and let it ride.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point about Rice, he is like one of the most frustrating prospects because, like, you watch him at SMU and he plays like he's 6'3", 225, and you're like, all right, yeah, big body possession type, cool. And he's like Velcro to a defender. Like he just, even if he beats the dude, he like brings him back into the play. And it's like, just let a win be a win. Then you find out he's like 6 foot, like almost 200 pounds. And you're like, what? Yeah. And now the Chiefs are using him as a yak guy. Like find soft space, we'll get the ball, and then be a yards after the catch dude. And it's like,
and that's perfect. Let him be the Z. Move him around. Let him get the ball quick in space, and let him make something happen. Because now you can have Brian Thomas work the X and beat you vertically too on that side too. It's not just your typical possession guy.
Yeah, and I mean all LSU's offense. There's not a whole lot of in breaking or out breaking routes. It's screen, hitch, vertical, and like that. That's the guy they're missing right now. A guy who can get open on a comeback route because you have to respect the over the top stuff. Oh, while also replacing Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who drops like 80% of his targets.
I forgot about him as well. I forgot about him as well.
He's got like a very cuttable contract. I think that frees up close to $10 million. So he's going to be a cap casualty for sure. Brian Thomas Jr., that's your replacement. And yeah, also Sky Moore, one of my biggest draft misses today. Like, oh my God, that guy forgot how to play football once he got to the NFL.
It's sad for him because he's a kid. You can tell he works his tail off, and when I listen to him or hear him speak in interviews and pressers and all that, you can tell that he wants it. He just can't. He hasn't produced on the field. Sometimes you got it, and sometimes you don't. Right,
totally. Oh, so then we get to Green Bay, man.
So many options for Green Bay. So many options.
Ton of options here. And it's really hard for me to pass on tackle here because I'm like, I like Zach Tom. I think Zach Tom can be one of those 2 starting tackles.
But
Amarius Mims, too raw for me. Jordan Morgan's a good option. I don't hate him here. Patrick Paul, still a little rich for my blood. I'm going to go Tyrion Arnold instead. I'm going to go Arnold because Jair Alexander is not going to be a Green Bay Packer next year. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, as a Steelers fan, he finds a way, 1 year, like $14 million contract to be wearing some black and gold, partnered up with Cooper DeJean. I'd be super pumped about that. Yeah. But I want to have Arnold be that guy who maybe does play on the outside, maybe he plays on the inside. This team needs a change of defensive coordinator. They play the softest coverage imaginable. So hopefully with the DC change, it kind of cleans some of that up. And they've also been exploited over the middle of the field. So, like, I hope that Tyrion Arnold's the guy to kind of answer that, whether it's zone or man. Take away that easy stuff. Don't let teams beat you from the hashes. Make them win on the outside. Also, safety was a potential route here. I almost went Cam Kinchins. So I decided this team needs legitimately an overhaul at probably 4 of the 5 starting spots. Maybe Eric Stokes, one of the guys that sticks around, but
he can't stay healthy. Stokes can't stay healthy.
Which to that point, they need to overhaul that entire secondary then, which that's a daunting task in today's NFL.
Yeah, well, I mean, they traded Rasul Douglas, right? The safeties, both of their starting safeties. Actually, no, AJ Namos left last year.
Yep.
And Savage was just not it. Yeah. They need an overhaul, like you said. So Tyrion Arnold is, a great fit. I'm not going to hesitate here with Tampa Bay because I think there's a match made in heaven. And I'm going to take up Leatu Latu.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't matter where you play him. I see him as ultimately that Joe Tryon replacement, that stand-up rush, backer / end. Listen, Latu might arguably be the best pure pass rusher in this whole cycle. His skills. How he transfers speed to power, his handwork. The only question with Latu, I have 2, is how much he's going to be able to improve if he's asked to drop off into coverage, and can his medicals, is he going to pass the litmus test on the medicals? That neck or the stenosis or whatever the problem is real. That's the only reason I think he drops into the 20s is the injury flag. But talent wise, he could easily be talent wise the first edge off the board without question.
I totally agree. And he's like, I think versus last 6 games at Florida State might have actually turned into his like best 6 game sample. Yeah. So I think he's kind of proven maybe he's got the highest floor of the edge guys. But Latu is like what, you don't need to teach this guy any moves. Like this guy's got it. I think you bring up a good point, especially for like a Todd Bowles type of defense.
Yeah.
The athletic limitations, I don't mind his limitations. I think he's like, for a pass rush standpoint, like a B tier athlete. He's not Dallas Turner. He's not like off the charts sick, but he'll pass and he'll check all those boxes. But dropping into coverage is a different beast. So for a Bulls defense, that could be a little tricky.
Yeah, and they do run a lot of that. They give a lot of pressure from a lot of different areas, a lot of zone blitzing. So sometimes he will be asked to do that. But listen. I think Leatu Latu can come into any scheme and affect the defense in a positive way just because he's as pro-ready of a pass rusher as they come. So even if it's nothing more than say, hey, you're going to be on the field, you pin your ears back and go get him.
And he's the best hands fighter this edge.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's one, how fast they move, but 2, like I don't know how. I think I might be able to count on 2 hands the amount of times offensive tackles got like a clean grip on him.
Yeah,
but no, it's crazy. Well, speaking of the edge group, man, here with Indianapolis, knowing Chris Ballard, Dallas Turner would be a tough guy for him to lay off of. But I'm not going to do it. I think Kwity Paye is a better run defender than he is a pass rusher, and they're still, because of that, figuring out who's going to be that guy who gets 10 sacks a year, and they're kind of piecing it along. Thankfully, they have a DeForest Buckner there in the middle. But at the same time, I was never a big Alec Pierce guy, and there's another freak athlete, a guy who can mistime his jump and still high point it and win it over a corner. I'm going AD Mitchell.
Yeah,
I think he's Alec Pierce plus, and plus still kind of has that athletic like awe about him to where Chris Ballard might be able to turn away from Dallas Turner and say, okay, that guy's a special enough athlete. That's my type of guy. Let's go get AD Mitchell. And I like I said, I think he could just be Alec Pierce plus. I think he gives you more after the catch too than a Pierce does. I think Pierce is kind of one note. He's got to go win down the field.
Yep.
And also I just think about like, this is going to be an offense where you have to tackle Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. What's another frustrating body type to deal with? And I think like AD Mitchell and his athleticism and his speed, he's the guy. And I think he's a perfect pairing for Michael Pittman, who's just not going to challenge you over the top quite like an AD can.
Yeah. I love it. I love the fit. I love the I love the player. First off, I would have taken him. Just truth be told, I would have taken him here for Jacksonville.
Oh, that would have been a great fit too.
He would have been a great fit there. But listen, I think AD Mitchell. I don't think he's really tapped into his full potential yet, and like athletically gifted. You see the control that he has, the control of his body, so on and so forth. If he puts it all together, I mean, watch out. He's going to be a star in the making.
Yeah.
So I love the pick.
And just because I know there's going to be people who are like, what about Keon Coleman? And it's like, I think that could work too. That could be Alec Pierce plus for sure. The reason I decided I think I'm going to have AD Mitchell, at least right now, higher in my receiver rankings is like AD Mitchell's not totally there as a route runner, but he'll give you like 5 in a week where you're like, oh God, that is filthy. You can't do that. That's illegal in 34 states, son. You can't do that to kids. Versus like Keon Coleman, you don't really ever see that. So I think there's a little bit more progress as regards to route runner for AD right now over Keon.
Yeah. Leaves me up for Jacksonville. As I told you, AD Mitchell was going to be my pick here. I think wide receivers probably a sneakier need than they want to talk about. You got Christian Kirk. Do you have one more year, Calvin Ridley, or is he in his walk year? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and the cost to extend him is like it's an incentive that flips from like a 6th to a 4th. I want to say maybe it's a 3rd, but it's like not totally prohibitive if you do decide to extend him and deal with that incentive clause.
Yeah, there's going to be some discussions. I know Keon Coleman's still on the board.
Yeah,
I happen to not be the biggest fan of wide receivers who really can't separate in college because there's a good chance that they're not going to separate at the pros. Now, listen, I've been proven wrong because Drake London, some said had trouble separating in college, and I think he's done an admirable job in the pros. I think Keon Coleman's a little bit more athletic than Drake London too, but I'm going to digress, and I'm going to stay away. Listen, I'm going to hope, like I said, we talked about this wide receiver crew is deep. I think there's still going to be plenty of talent available in the 2nd and 3rd round. I'm going to take my interior offensive lineman number 1 off of the board here and fill a big need for Jacksonville. I'm going to take Graham Barton. I know he's listed as tackle here. I think he definitely bumps inside. There's not a lot of Graham Barton outside of the fact that he probably needs to put on a little bit more good weight and some functional strength. There's not a lot of Graham Barton tape that I watched that I absolutely didn't adore. He plays with tenacity. He finishes his blocks. I think he's phenomenal movement getting to the 2nd level. I think he's not scheme dependent. I think he can play in a gap scheme, power scheme. I think he can play in his zone inside or outside. I love the fact that he's got versatility that you want to play center. Okay. He can play, he's played a year at center. You want to play either guard. I think that's fine. In a pinch, you need him to play tackle. That's fine too. I think he's capable of doing it. Technically sound. I think he, where he's got to improve, like I said, is a little bit more that hip strength, that core strength, that functional strength, that good muscle to put on, so that he can just anchor down a little bit harder against some of the power rushers that seem to get him. But when you watch him against some of the elite runners, you watch him against Florida State. He manhandled versus a lot of the game. It was special. I think Graham Barton's a phenomenal prospect, and I'm happy that he was here for Jacksonville because I think it'd be a match made in heaven. So Graham Barton's a pick.
Yeah, and I love Barton. He's my Iowa 1 too. And I think Jacksonville's actually a great spot for him to go because like Luke Fortner's not been a great center. Yeah. So if Barton wants to play center, that could work, especially after they make the Ezra Cleveland deal at the deadline. Maybe Cleveland's their left guard of the future. They're also like trying to figure out what left tackle is going to be. Is that Walker Little? Anton Harrison's played great, so what are we doing there? So I love that, like on paper to me, this is your left guard of the future. But if you got Cleveland and you like that, he could be your center of the future. He could be a spot starter. You summed it up perfectly. Huge fan of Barton. Yeah. Only thing I'll add is like go back 2 years ago. His tape is off the charts sick. Like legitimately, it's like, okay, this guy's going to be a first rounder off that. And this year, maybe a step back for Duke, but he was also playing injured, which don't let this be like the reason you make a decision. But a guy who plays offensive line is going to have to like play injured. So I love the fact that he's like, I'll gut out the entire season for Duke. It's not like he's doing this at Ohio State for Texas or like a team hey, we have a chance to make the college football. It's Duke. And he's still gutting it out, and he's still trying to do everything he can. And he was still pretty good, given the fact he was injured. So
there's versatility. The versatility piece for me
huge
holds a lot. Holds a lot of depth and weight. Like I love the fact that he legitimately, like in a pinch, could play all 5 spots. Came in and he started as a center as a redshirt freshman. And has played guard, has played on both sides of the tackle. Obviously, he kind of found his home at left tackle. I think the length thing is going to be real. I don't know if the length thing is going to be real. He's going to have some trouble with some of the bigger, stronger guys that get up into him a little fast. Like I said, a little bit more functional strength. Put him at the pivot. Put him at the guard where he has a little bit of space to move. And I think it's a home run. I think he's going to be a home run pick.
Totally. Speaking of home runs, I won't waste any time. Dallas Turner
to the Rams.
The Los Angeles Rams, dude. Oh, my God. I mean, just seeing what Byron Young has done, just because the center of gravity on that defense in L.A. is Aaron Donald. Every opposing offense is like, how do we stop 99? Because of that, Byron Murphy's a good run defender, but also he gets a ton of one-on-ones, and he's a good athlete. So he has enough explosiveness. Sometimes he'll just beat a tackle. I think Dallas Turner's that plus because, one, twitchy athlete, awesome get-off. But he's also added some muscle. He's starting to show he's gaining some inside counters, so he's not one note as he was 2 years ago. Man, this is like getting Byron Murphy, but a guy who's like figuring it out, a little bit younger, and maybe even more explosive. So, perfect.
This is a perfect fit. I really liked. Listen, Dallas Turner easily could be, if he's the first defensive player taken off the board, wouldn't shock me whatsoever. Just the way we moved and juggled some stuff around. And we played around. It didn't work out that way. But like you said, I think that this is a perfect fit. Another young, fast, aggressive, twitchy athlete to go along with the rest of those fast, twitchy athletes on that defense. I mean, the LA Rams would be probably in heaven.
And look, as long as you got McVay, if Stafford comes back and you got those 2 receivers and Kyron Williams, that offense will be fine. You got to make sure the offensive line doesn't totally suck, but everything else should fall into place. And now if you land a Dallas Turner at 23, 1, awesome value. 2, find a couple of corners, and that defense, if Raheem Morris is back at DC, could be really scary.
Yeah. And that leaves me on the board with the Bills. I think everyone kind of just defaults to wide receiver for the Bills, which, like I said, I thought about it as well. I don't expect Gabe Davis to be back. Who knows what's going on with Steph Diggs? The Bills fans will tell you it's fine. He loves it here. He loves Josh Allen, so on and so forth. And then everyone else says, no, there's something brewing there. There's something going off. So who knows what's going to happen with Steph Diggs? No Gabe Davis, no Steph Diggs. To me, wide receiver makes sense. I think for as good of a team as the Bills are, and I do think that they're a really, really good team, 1-53 right now. They're gonna have to address a lot of holes next year, right? You're gonna need some safety help, right? Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are only going to carry you for so long, right? The father time and the injuries are catching up. So I don't know if Taylor Rapp. I know he's only on a 1-year deal. I don't know if he's a long-term replacement. And this is a place, this is the area where you could probably feel comfortable snagging a safety. We already talked about the wide receiver issues that they're going to have. This is a place where you could probably comfortably take a wide receiver. I think that defensive line sneakily is something that they're going to need. They need some edge help, right? They're going to need some edge help there. Von Miller looks like the shell of Von Miller previous to that. Spencer Brown, I would say tackle as well. Spencer Brown has had, kind of had his breakout season, so I might be a little bit more comfortable there. That right side of Osiris Torrance and Trent Brown has done very, very well. So I'm kind of back and forth. I think that this is a good spot where, you can look at safety or defensive back, but without knowing what happens in free agency, it's hard not to look at the wide receivers here. And I think that's the bigger question mark, or the biggest question mark. So this is where I think I'm going to have Keon Coleman come off the board, right? Like I said, I questioned how much, I questioned his ability to separate in college. I questioned his ability to, that leads me to believe that he's going to have trouble separating at the next level. But there's no denying his athleticism. There's no denying, the strength that he plays with. The catch radius is there. The contested catch ability is there. He can go up and get a ball. You put him outside on the X. You let Steph, if he's back, move around all over the formation. I think you're still going to need to bring in another slot guy. I was tempted to think about a Mekobuka because I think that might be a better match for that. But I don't want to see Keon Coleman fall to the second round because I don't think that would be fair to him. I think he's a first round talent, just not my favorite guy. If there's any teams here, Cincinnati or Buffalo, maybe, like I said, maybe you can make the argument for Baltimore as well that might need that true big X. You're going to get one in Keon Coleman. So Keon Coleman's going to be my pick.
Yeah, and I think him, Cam Kinchins, Braylon Trice, all three in play here. Like, I think Bryce is kind of the edge they don't have and haven't really drafted, but maybe that's the reason they do it. Cam Kinchins, you talked about safety, makes a ton of sense. I like Coleman here. And I'm not a huge Gabe Davis guy. Same thing with Alec Pierce. I don't like guys who are one note. I need you to win in 2/3 of the field. You can either win deep and be a yak guy, or you can win underneath and be an intermediate guy, or some variation of that. Or like Chris Olave, win intermediate and win deep. Like I'm cool with, you gotta give me 2/3. And Davis to me is just too one note. So it'd be interesting to see if they tap into Coleman, especially as Joe Brady's become this guy who wants to work underneath, then maybe look long, versus Ken Dorsey, who was like, I want to look deep and then work down.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if they would use Keon Coleman as just be like, this guy's a former basketball player. We're just going to give him the ball in space and just let him, be an awesome athlete. And actually on that point, so yeah, the route running's a little rough, and it makes me kind of think of T. Higgins a little bit, where it's like, I didn't see it a lot in college, but it's ultimately kind of worked out fine for Higgins. Maybe the same is true for Coleman. But two other sports that, like, when I see you have that in your background, I'm like, okay, I don't hate that you're a jump ball guy first. Baseball, just because, former baseball player, got to admit that bias off the jump. But like Malik Neighbors, former baseball player, your ability to read and react, see a ball come your way, and without thinking about it, you're just instinctively going to find it.
Yep.
I love that. And you see it in Neighbors tape. The ball's in the air, and he's like automatically on his route. And then like basketball here for Keon Coleman. Like his ability to go, one, track the ball, but then two, also deal with a guy on your backside. Like that to me is what's like, okay, he might be able to make it work. It's not like N'Keal Harry, where like the guy just wins through contested catches. I think Coleman's a little bit better at that, but there is still work to be done. Long tangent aside, I'm very vested in the Bills. Josh Allen's my favorite player in the league. So I got to make sure the man is supported. So I think I like this Keon Coleman pick, but those two defensive players, don't be shocked if that's where the Bills go.
Yeah. Listen, I we talk about the dream matchups. He was in our mock here. He was long off the board, but I think Cooper DeJean is a dream fit for Buffalo, right? You inside, outside. They don't really need a nickel. They don't really need a slot corner. But you can play him as a split safety. You can play him, all over the place. I think that he would be that perfect heir apparent to that phenomenal duo that they've had there for so long. That as a Jets fan, I'll be the first one to wish him adieu.
No doubt.
So you're up. What do you think? Seattle, finally, they trading down again for number 3, or are they going to pick?
No, and Braylon Trice is a great idea here. You've already talked about that. I'm going to go Troy Fautano, though. One of those two Washington guys makes a ton of sense, not just for the regional stuff. We talked about Trice is that power guy that they don't have right now. Could be that inside-outside guy to replace Leonard Williams for sure. I'm just going to go Fautano and just say, hey, arm length keeps him from playing left tackle. You plug him in at playing left guard. Seattle's had, especially when you look at their PFF grades, their guards are always pretty good run blockers, but they're just abysmal in pass protection. I think Fautano cleans that up, at least on the left side. I was also a huge Charles Cross guy. He was my OT1. So I'm just thinking about running behind the left side of that O-line. If I'm K-Walk, if I'm Charbonnet, or if I'm Geno Smith with that being my backside, I'm feeling really good about it. So Trice or Fautano, I'm cool with either one here.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, I think Fautano makes complete sense. They're going to love keeping the UW kid up in Seattle at home. Perfect fit. And he's another guy who has that flexibility, that totally. Versatility all over the line. He's definitely probably not going to be pure tackle material in the NFL, the short, stubby arms. But in a pinch,
like in a spot start,
you need to do it. That's fine. He's got the chops and the wherewithal to do it. But I think he's going to be a great guard at the next level. And I'm up with Philly. And I thought the whole time, for me, this has always been my Lane Johnson replacement. right?
Yeah,
This
sure.
is always going to be, because who knows when he's going to retire, if it's this is last year or not. Howie Roseman seems to always draft a year ahead before a need, right? They definitely could draft an edge, I don't know if Braylon Trice, Braylon Trice is that 270 guy that they could have on there.
To me, he's the perfect Brandon Graham replacement.
Yeah,
Like,
is he that Brandon Graham?
power, yeah.
But I'm gonna go a different way. Like my whole mindset when I had this, and if I kept in evens in Philadelphia in an even spot where I was picking, I was gonna take my Lane Johnson replacement. Armarius Mims is sitting here, perfect to me. Let him sit, let him brew. He's very, very green. But when I'm looking at Armarius Mims, I realize Kool-Aid McKinstry's still on the board, and with Bradbury playing as bad as he had, even Slay coming down a spot, right? I know that they spent some capital in guys like Keely Ringo, Josh Jobe in the late round stuff, but I don't know if any of those guys can come in and affect the game and ultimately be an instant starter on this team, where at a position where they might need an instant starter, because I don't know if Bradbury's got it anymore. I don't know. Kool-Aid McKinstry I think is a home run pick for the Eagles here. Slay's under contract for at least 2 more years, right? I think I know his contract was a 3-year extension this year. I don't know if they got an out after next year, but I know Bradbury's gone, right? And if he's not, they're going to push him out the door because he's just been pretty bad. Kool-Aid McKinstry being here on the board, again, offers you that ability to play to press up. He's got he's got those buttery hips that he can turn and run. He breaks, electric when he breaks on a ball. Tall, big enough. Probably, like I said, could be when it's all said and done my cornerback one. I've been going back and forth with a lot of the guys. This to me seems like such a match made in heaven, positional need wise. So Kool-Aid's going to be the pick.
Yeah, and I mean, I bet the team that I now have here with Detroit, if like Kool-Aid McKinstry just fell into their lap, they would be throwing a Super Bowl parade through the city of Detroit, because that really would be a perfect Aaron Glenn guy. But no, I think that's a great shout. I know a lot of Eagles fans in my mock, they love Amarius Mims as a fit, and they hate drafting corner. But what I always say back is like, yeah, you've signed they signed UDFA. Eli Ricks, drafted Keely Ringo, but that was a 6-rounder.
They got Josh Jobe, who's another late rounder as well.
Yeah, and you drafted Zach McPherson with like a 3rd, I think, like 88th overall. Like,
yep.
Are these the investments that you really want to have starting? I know it sounds cool that like, oh yeah, we developed them, but like in the grand scheme of things, a 1st-round investment versus a 6-rounder, it's a world of difference. So I love the prioritization there. And it's a pretty good tackle group. There's nothing saying you couldn't get a guy in the second to be.
And they have 2 second-round picks. They have 2 second-round picks.
You could go edge and OT, kind of the Howie Roseman special there in the 2nd round. So I like that a ton. Which then brings us to Detroit here. And like I said, McKinstry was, if you had gone Mims, we wouldn't have had a conversation there. It's Kool-Aid for sure. And I just think about Detroit, a sneaky need kind of as receiver. Like I could think they could use one more guy on the outside. I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But is Reynolds really a guy you want to depend on a ton, beyond Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra? But then edge and corner. So I'm kind of looking at my options here. And corners one that, if I went in this direction, I don't hate the idea of Rackstraw Jr. or Kamari Laster, who's been really good at Georgia. Quinyon Mitchell is kind of a sleeper guy, ton of ball production. TJ Tampa's been good too. I'm going to go edge though. And we haven't talked about Chomp Robinson yet. And I'm kind of between him and Braylon Trice here, the guy with ton of production, high motor, all that, play strength that we've talked about, or Chomp, who's like this kind of one-of-one edge rusher when it comes to an athletic standpoint, but a lot of work to be done there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go Trice. I think Trice, with especially what he did in the college football playoff, has boosted his stock. So I'll make Braylon Trice the pick here, but legitimately a plethora of options here for Detroit that I think makes sense. Quinyon Mitchell, I'm here for that. Kamari Laster, I'm cool with that. Even Chop Robinson is like the athletic freak where he's going to get one-on-ones because Aiden Hutchinson exists. He'll win those one-on-ones, so I'm cool with anything. But let's go with Braylon Trice. They don't really have that power rusher in that rotation, so let's plug Trice in.
I love it. Like I said, Trice is my edge 2 in this class. And he reminds me, he's that play style again. We talked about, you put a guy who's like a bull in a china shop and won't stop. Opposite Aiden Hutchinson, who's a bull in the china shop and won't stop.
Yeah.
That could be dangerous.
And you partner that up with those two guys who won't give up coming from the edge, and Lee McNeil in a breakout season through the middle. Like, you have nowhere to step up to either against that defense. So yeah, one more edge guy. I think that defense is there.
Yeah. And that leaves me on the clock with Houston. Surprised that they're picking 28th here. I mean, obviously there's one more week of football, so this isn't the final. But they can go a bunch of different ways here, right? Tackle's going to be on the board on the discussion. I mean, George Fant is playing right tackle for him right now, the injuries that going on. Wide receiver everyone seems to always mock a wide receiver to the Texans. I don't know how I feel about that personally. I don't know how you feel. What do you feel, TEEJ? What's your thoughts on Tank Dell? You think he's the real deal?
Oh yeah, Tank was a top 5 receiver for me last year, so I was already really high on Tank Dell. To me, it was like the arm length was there. Like, I know he's 5'10", 165, but his wingspan 6 foot. So I didn't think press was going to be as big of a concern, especially considering if you whiff at the line of scrimmage against him, like, just put 6 on the board. It's done. I think they get Nico Collins back too. So
no, absolutely. I was just curious on how you felt about Tank Dell, because Nico had his breakout this year, right?
Yeah,
now, Robert Woods, he's more of that veteran presence, so on and so forth. He's the guy that you're going to probably have to replace. I don't know if I need to stretch here right now. What I do think is more of a pressing need is some beef in the middle of that defensive line, and give me that 3 tech. Right. And we talked about him before a little bit.
Yep. I'm here for it. This was going to be my pick here, right? If I had the Texans.
Byron Murphy here, staying home in the state of Texas in that 3 tech again, that I'll call it the Quinnen Williams role, because, they're running the same defense that he learned, oh my God, what is their coach name?
DeMeco Ryans.
DeMeco Ryans learned under Robert Saleh,
Yep.
And you pop him in there. This is a match made in heaven. Listen, he's 305 pounds. He's still stout against the run, but what he can do with his upper body strength and just his get off and his quickness, a man that big shouldn't be that quick. He moves the pocket well. He can move that pocket vertically and press and move defenders right back into the quarterback. Stout enough against the run. A special talent. There's a reason he was the defensive lineman, defensive player of the year in the conference. He's that good, people. If you haven't watched Byron Murphy, I know T'Vondre Sweat gets all the hype because he's 365 pounds and a guy that big shouldn't move the way he does. But Byron Murphy's as good, if not better. And for this piece, for this scheme, for this fit right now, I love him in that 3 tech and DeMeco Ryans fit. So Byron Murphy's pick.
Yeah, and ultimately it kind of went from an interior defensive class where I was like, I think Johnny Newton's probably the only guy going first round. We got to midway through the college season. I was like, T'Vondre Sweat probably goes in the first. To where I think Byron Murphy's my edge one. My IDL one.
Yeah.
The way he closed out this year, like, I'm like, dude, this man's a freak. And he does everything that Johnny Newton does, just at like 18 pounds, almost 20 pounds bigger. So that's kind of why I lean that way. But those 3 guys should all go round 1. Like, they've all earned it. So it's wild to see how much it's changed there. And you noted it, man. Like, that would be a perfect pick there. It's the one spot they don't have that D line.
Yeah.
Bernard stepping up. Will Anderson looks like a hit. And actually, just a note on it, that was actually Cleveland's pick. So that's where it gets like, oh my God.
Oh, that's right. You're absolutely right. That's Cleveland. I was saying that they're picking 28. Yeah, that's Cleveland's pick.
They're playing with house money. So I mean, you tack on that interior defensive lineman on top of what we've already get. I mean, what they it's just like crazy to think about what that defense could be. Yeah. And then back to receiver. Like, I think Jalen Polk's my guy. Like, if I could get him as their slot receiver in any mock, like, I love it. Their next pick's at 49, so you probably have to move up a little bit. But you jump from 49 to 40, probably not costing you a whole lot. And then you make Jalen Polk that slot, Chris Godwin type to go with Nico and Tank Dell.
Yeah.
I love that receiving.
Or even a lot of people are high on Emeka Buga. I mean, I think he drops the ball a little too much for my taste. Not really crazy about the hands, but I think he could be in that range in that second round. That 50. What did you say they picked?
49. Yeah.
He's going to go anywhere from probably 25 to 50. That's the sweet spot for Ibuka. For Polk, maybe you have to trade up a little bit, like you said. Both of those are great fits. Like I said, I don't think that finding that 3 tech, especially in that defense, is so important. For Houston. Byron Murphy's, to me, a match made in heaven.
Totally.
What are you
Totally
gonna?
agree.
You're up with the Dolphins.
Oh man, this is a tough team to draft for a number of reasons. One, because you just look at their roster on paper and you're like, where are the weaknesses? Like where is it at? As long as they got McDaniel too and those receivers, they're going to put up points, and they got two great corners too, and pretty good DC and Fangio. So, man, this one's tricky. I will throw this out for anybody who hasn't already caught on the bandwagon. Perfect fit here for Miami is JT Sanders. It's probably more of a second round move here than it is in the first, but JT Sanders, the way that dude moves is as close to a Kittle type that McDaniel's going to get the draft. So I hope they end up with JT Sanders because I love that. Inter-offensive line, I'd love to see them beef up and add some more there. I think this is a little rich for Christian Haynes. I think this is a good class to kind of draft in the second round. Jackson Powers-Johnson's a guy I like a ton, but I think they'll be fine at center. Could go Amarius Mims, but they just extended Austin Jackson. Looked like he's getting a little better. So ultimately, I'm going to go. I'm going to go with the one spot that I look at and it doesn't really fit with their team identity. But if you patch this one area up, I don't know where you beat them on defense. And I'm going to give them the other Texas defensive interior defender in Devondre Sweat. If you just put a 360-pound block of muscle and meat there in the middle of the defense, Christian Wilkins gets to focus on being a pass rusher. And if you struggle running the ball against this team, every Fangio disciple, and Fangio especially himself, if you take away the run, you have a really hard time throwing against them, especially when the corners are Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey. So not the speed guy, it's not the guy that totally fits with that philosophy, but I look at the one weakness on this team, and their run defense grade across the board is pretty low. So I think if you plugged in Devondre Sweat, hopefully the edge guys come back healthy. That could be the one missing component to that defense.
Yeah, I mean they drafted Cam Smith last year, so even if Xavier Howard's gone next year, you would hope that you have that pipeline there.
And I think Cam Smith had better tape on the outside than he did at slot.
Me too. Yeah, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. And clearly, Fangio doesn't like him inside at slot because he doesn't. He doesn't.
He'd rather use Kader Kohu there. Yeah, for sure.
Who gets burned left and right and center? But I think for Miami, I think obviously now, if you look at the way the team is constituted right now today, the Achilles injury to Jalen Phillips, the torn ACL to Bradley Chubb, I think edge might be a need. The funny part is that the edge rushers kind of fall off a cliff, right? I like Chris Braswell. I think Chris Braswell fits that Miami team very well as a stand-up 3-4 outside linebacker. He's probably after that. It kind of gets sloppy after that. But listen, what you did with Sweat, I haven't seen, I haven't really thought about, but I'm like, yeah. Listen, they still have to sign Christian Wilkins, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm assuming they're going to franchise him, but at worst, but they're not going to let him go. But yeah, I like that. I like that fit there. Big old body right next to Christian Wilkins. Let Christian Wilkins get after the. I
think this is another team where, if Chop comes off the board, they have the ability to give him the time he probably needs and the coaching that he probably needs. Because assuming Phillips and Chubb come back healthy, they won't need him to be more than a DPR kind of speed rush, sprinkle of the mix. Throw him in there. So Chop's kind of an interesting edge guy to throw out there too for this team.
Yeah, leaves me on the board with Cowboys. Can go a bunch of different ways. I think. Excuse me. Again, I think this is a team that. Wide receiver is another sneaky need. You're going to need some. Brandon Cooks isn't going to play forever. I know he's got one more year in his contract, but he's getting up there in age. So you could draft to look to replace or supplement or complement for 1 year. CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks with another receiver. Or plan your replacement for Brandon Cooks, who I'm assuming they probably won't bring back at 31 years old. Cornerback is always a need for this team. I think that the resurgence that you've seen of this Dallas defense might be with some undue smoke and mirrors. I think the way to really lose to Dallas is to let Dallas get a big lead, right? If they get a big lead and they can pin their ears back and run what they want to, run all those pass rushers at the quarterback, they tend to beat you. But if you can control the ball and so on and so forth, they seem to lose. So I think cornerback is going to be an area I'm going to address. I actually think I might look, Yeah. I might go ahead and take linebacker. I know that linebacker is not a very fancy position, or a position off-ball linebacker per se that is taken in the first round. But I'm trying to find in my head the holes that Dallas has. Listen, do they need, they need some offensive line help? I don't know if the center, the kid from Wisconsin that they've had there for a while, I don't know if he's Bjadish. I don't know if he's under contract any longer.
Okay.
I know they re-signed the right tackle Steele, if I'm not mistaken.
But then they just brought in Lyle Collins too. So
yeah, but Tyron Smith is in his walk year at 35, 36. Yeah, maybe linebacker is gonna have to wait. Let me look at my offensive lineman here.
This is one where
I know what I'm doing. Actually, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm going Kingsley Suamataia.
Oh, I love Suamataia.
Yeah, it's a perfect fit because, like I said, even though they extended Steele, he's had a rough season last year, and they brought back Lyle Collins. Suamataia has that flexibility to play both left or right, And at this point, at pick 30, he doesn't need to come in and be your starter. So you could still bring back Tyron Smith, and for another 1-year deal while you let Kingsley sit there and learn and develop, and then maybe that gives you one more year that you're able to get under the contract of Steele, get out of the contract of Steele, and if not, you have you have a good, solid, just athletic and strong player, in the wings, and you drafted him a year ahead than maybe you need him, and if not, he comes in and he is competition at left tackle if you choose not to bring back Tyron Smith.
Yeah, no, I love this pick a ton. And it's one of those things where, like I've seen Patrick Paul a ton, and like I think he's a good player, but this is where it's like Jordan Morgan, I think, gives you more athletically, and it's a good scheme fit there. But like Suamataia, after seeing what they've done with Tyler Smith, this guy who was supposed to be, it's going to take a little bit of time. He's raw, he's got penalty issues, and then he just hits the ground running, becomes like one of the best left guards in football. Okay, let's go give him the 6'8" guy who moves not quite Olu well, but like not too far off.
Yeah.
Like he started the year as my OT3. I think Fuagas jumped him. He's probably my 4, and then Latham right there as the right tackle kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like Latham a lot too. So I don't know. It's a good tackle class. Good year to need an offensive lineman, which like half the NFL needs a starting tackle right now.
Yes. So, yeah. Well, like I said, I just like the flexibility or the versatility that Suamataia can do, considering that he's played significant snaps at both left and right tackle. Right. He's got the movement skills to handle both. He's big. He's strong enough. And I like the idea that he doesn't, we don't know what's going to happen in free agency, but even at worst, like here's a guy who's going to be able to come in year 2 at worst and step in. Can you imagine him next to Tyler Smith over there on the left side of that line? Oh my god!
And that's the thing is like, I mean, I'm assuming Tyron Smith walks and goes somewhere else, but like he might not want to be anything other than a Dallas Cowboy. So he might just play, hey, like I'll play one more year, give me a 1-year, $15 million contract.
Yeah, the Jason Kelsey deal. Just keep coming back 1 year, 1 year.
I'll coach up Suamataia, which, oh my god, could you imagine how that works out? Because Suamataia is still a bit of a work. Sometimes he just plays like he's 6'8" and he plays really tall. And sometimes lose that leverage battle, especially in the run game too. Like it feels like he's playing really top heavy and starts to lean. So there's things that need to be worked on. So like, why not just plug him in right behind Tyron Smith and like learn from maybe the best left tackle that I've seen in my lifetime. So like perfect landing spot. One to hit on, dude, if you're a corner, Dallas has got to be the team you want to go to, because I want to work with Al Harris and all of a sudden turn into a pick 6 demon, an interception monster like Diggs, like Bland. And like, dude, if I'm in the corner, I'm like, I'll fall to wherever Dallas is. Like, I'm cool with that. I'll deal with the loss of money there. But that is kind of an interesting concept there. And who knows? Like, if Dan Quinn leaves, Al Harris is probably following him, if I had to guess. Maybe they make him the DC instead. I don't think he wants all that. I think he just wants to coach corners. So he's probably going where Quinn goes. So we'll see what ends up happening there long term in Dallas too. I'll be quick here because I talked about that for too long. This is an absolute no-brainer here for San Francisco. This is Demarius Mims. This is another spot too where like Jackson Powers Johnson, love that as a center upgrade over Brendel.
Yeah.
If Fautanu somehow made it here, if Graham Barton made it here, instant upgrade over Aaron Banks, who to me never made sense as a blocker and a scheme fit there in San Francisco. But just given who's available, Demarius Mims, that's your Colton McKivitz upgrade. And like Shanahan's offense makes the offensive line look better than the talent on. Again, they have one high quality starter on the offensive line. Everyone else is just kind of meh at best. You plug in 6'7", 340 pounds, really athletic, a guy who needs to clean up the hand usage, I don't think is quite as explosive as a Broderick Jones, just because you're going to hear that a ton. I think Broderick's maybe a little bit more explosive and like has a little bit more mean streak. Broderick
No,
would get his hands on
absolutely.
you and he would
Absolutely.
blow dudes up. Like when Broderick hits you, oh my God, instant highlight. I don't think Mims is quite there yet, which I think maybe is just the hand usage. But all that to say, like at the worst, Shanahan's going to keep him clean and he's going to look better than he actually is. The upside of this is you draft the right tackle version of Trent Williams. And like that's legit. I'm not saying he's going to be Trent Williams, but like that's the top 1% outcome. And then to have both those guys on your offensive line opposite one another, I mean, that feels a little unfair for the team that, you know, already feels like the best team in the NFC pretty clearly.
Listen, Mims is such a polarizing prospect to me. Like,
Totally.
you know, you love the measurables. You love, you know, he doesn't move like he's, you know, 300 and some odd pounds. He moves like he's 185 pounds at 6'7". You know, it's ridiculous. But like he sometimes looks to me, you know, in the limited snaps that he's taken in college, because that's the truth. There hasn't been much. In the limited snaps, he sometimes looks like he's playing timid, like he's thinking too much, like he's not confident in what he's doing next. That's going to come with play, with just reps and reps and reps. And you hope, like you said, that that he hits a sky high ceiling of Trent Williams. But the you know, the bomb factor for me is still way too high. Like I had Mims way high early on. And then, you know, then he hurt his ankle or got the high ankle sprain he took early in the season. And I forgot about Mims. I just forgot about Mims. And then he comes back in the SEC championship, right? And gets hurt again, you know, re-injures.
But that's where I think San Francisco's a good spot because, like, he can't be any worse than Colton McKivitz. Like, Aaron Banks is a terrible fit, and he's still a guy who finds a way to, like, get mid-60s PFF grades. And it's like, I don't know how. I don't know what you guys are watching, which I like PFF for a lot. But it's like, Aaron Banks is not a, like, average starter. He is not good, and he doesn't fit that scheme. So, at the worst, if he's a bust, he's the same of what they've already had pretty much level of play-wise. So, that's why it's like, got nothing to lose here.
Yeah. And the last pick of the first round here is me and the Baltimore Ravens. Does Odell come back? That's the question.
Yeah.
I think if they make a championship run, I think if they win the Super Bowl, I personally think Odell retires. You know, he's had enough, and you know, sayonara. That's real. That's a possibility. But I'm just gonna, you know, if they don't, maybe he does come back. Regardless if he's there or not, I think, you know, I think wide receiver is going to be on the conversation because he is 31 years old. You're going to need to replace him at some point. You know. Flowers has been the lights out, and you know, kudos to the kid. You talked about maybe your worst evaluation earlier. Flowers might be mine. I was not. I didn't see it. I didn't see it at all. I didn't like the competition that, you know, like in big time play at Boston College. I didn't think he stepped up. You know, I thought he was you know, he just absorbed the target share. I didn't see a lot of the, you know, jitterbug-esque stuff that he does. I just thought he was just a guy. So I was wrong, you know. So Mr. Flowers, if you watch this, you know, I was wrong on you. You know, you're a player, and I apologize. However, I think wide receiver is still on the board. The guys here, I don't know. You know, like Xavier Leggett, I love the physical nature. I love the height, weight, speed combo. I don't like the fact that, you know, he kind of, you know, what broke out at 23 years old. That kind of concerns me. You know, is this all you're going to get from Xavier Leggett? You know, yes, he could be that true X, you know, and take over there. Troy Franklin is kind of a guy that I think they already have on the board. I'm probably going to shy away from the wide receiver and hope that one of these guys, the Tez Walkers or the Jermaine Burtons, or the Ricky Pearsalls or the Jalen McMillans, if he actually comes out, falls to the second round. Polk makes sense too. I could take Jalen Polk here.
Polk was going to be who I would take.
Listen, I'm torn between Polk and a cornerback.
Corner makes a ton of sense too.
Corner makes a ton of sense too, right?
And year over year, it's one of those groups that, like, you hit a point. Maybe it's just at a different point each year, but like you hit that point and it's a mean drop. So it's one of those things where it's like, dude, do you really want to pass on Kamari last year, Quinyon Mitchell, while you can still get a guy like that?
Yeah. I'm not going to pass on them. I'm going to pass on the wide receiver, Mr. Jalen Polk. You are awesome. I love you, my friend. But you're going to have to wait and probably go off pick 33 to Carolina, and you're going to be, the new Bryce Young's new fun toy there. So I'm between two guys. I know you talked about Kamara Lassiter. I don't know if Kamara Lassiter is the way that I would go. Again, he's a guy that I think is going to end up inside. I think Quinyon Mitchell, people talk about him as strictly just a zone corner. I don't see it. I think his man skills are as good as anybody's that I watched in this corner class outside of Kool-Aid McKinstry. On the contrary, I think TJ Tampa, I love those long, lanky corners who can get down. So I think both of these guys are sneaky fits. I'm going to give the kid from Toledo the love. Quinyon Mitchell, I think he's a guy you're going to see him. I'm going to see him at the Senior Bowl. Everyone's going to see him at the Senior Bowl, and he's going to play against the best of the best. You watch him on film; he's sticky. I love the way he sinks and he breaks. The agility that he has there. He's got good ball skills. Yes, he's done it at Toledo. Yes, he's done it in the MAC. He hasn't done it against big time players, but I think he's going to find a home and ultimately end up outside and someone that was talked about in Baltimore and in the NFL for a long time. Quinyon Mitchell, the final pick of our first round.
Yeah, and it's one of those guys where, like, you look at him, he's like 6 foot, 200 pounds. Like, God, he almost looks a little bigger. He's a really physical guy. I think he'll be just fine in man coverage. And then, like, the ball skills, man. Like,
the ball skills are ridiculous. The ball skills are ridiculous.
It's one of those things where, like, I'd have to look it up what the Ravens man coverage usage is, but, like, the Cleveland Browns lead the league at, like, running 44% man coverage. That means more than half the time they're playing zone. So even if the man is strictly a zone corner, he's going to be a valuable asset and more useful than not. So, but I think I think he's stronger than maybe like his true height weight measurables lead on, and then the ball skills too. So I think he'll be just fine in man coverage. Like I said, I would have gone Polk just because I look at that team and I'm like, they don't have a man press beater. Like Zay Flowers is awesome against like off man and zone. Like he is fantastic. Yeah. Bateman's. Like, I don't know what he's kind of got that same Rashee Rice thing where you look at him at Minnesota and it's like, oh yeah, that's that 6'2", 200-pound X receiver, awesome. And then he like got COVID and he has not gained that weight back.
And so he and I think he's in his walk year too. Listen, wide receiver, you can make that argument that wide receiver probably should have been that pick.
I think either way it makes.
But I think, like I said, I think the value of the player you're getting at cornerback is going to be so far worse when you're picking later in the second round. Right. You're going to be
the second round crop of receiver versus corner. Night and day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Better take a second round receiver for sure.
Absolutely. So there we have it, guys. I don't think there's any big, surprises. I mean, I will say this. I think Kool-Aid lasts until 26. I don't think that was purposefully. I think that was probably the biggest surprise. Maybe some of you guys might think 3 quarterbacks in the top 10 or 4 quarterbacks in the top 11 is a surprise, but I think we got 5 quarterbacks, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the top 11 might be a big surprise. I think we got to get used to that.
Yeah, I it's the most more position in the sport. And then the other one's going to be interesting is like the Bowers versus Rome. Like which one of those guys come off the board? Because I think everyone can say, like if you were just calling pass catchers. Yeah, I think most people would say, well, okay, Marv is going to be the first one. Neighbors is probably the second. And then it's like, okay, well, depending on the team, Bowers could be that third pass catcher or it could be Rome. It's just going to be really interesting to see like people's preference on that.
Yeah. So listen, TJ, awesome time. I really thought that that was great. I had a ton of fun. Why don't you let everybody know again where they can catch you, your Twitter handle, your Instagram handle, whatever social medias you have here. I'll flip on while we have it here. Bada boom, bada bing, and I'll let that run across as you go.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, you can subscribe to the channel at TEEJ. You can just type in TEEJ mock draft, probably the quickest way to find the channel. Or you could do the @ thing that YouTube has rolled out at TEEJ11. I always forget about that handle. But yeah, definitely check out the channel. Ton of football content, mostly focused on the NFL draft, but I do a lot of in-season content as well. But the draft stuff is definitely more of my preference. I just said this the other day in a video. It feels wrong to say this as a football fan, but I think the offseason is my favorite time of the NFL season, which again feels sacrilegious because I like watching the sport too. But that team building process is what we cover a lot on the channel, and it's a lot of fun. You can also follow me on X. I guess we're going with it. We're going to call it X at TJ Wingert. I don't tweet out a whole lot, but when I do, it's all football related. So if you want to see the occasional tweet from a guy who thinks he's smarter than he probably is, give it a follow at TJ Wingert. But definitely check out the channel. Would love to have you all around. And last mock I put up on the channel is the biggest video on my channel. So definitely give that a look and let me know what you think about that 2-rounder.
Well, we're hoping to get that here on this channel. That's
100%.
at Prospect or Project Prospect with Dom C. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that, please. I'd appreciate it. More so, and more importantly, if you do watch this and you like it, feel free to leave us a message. That friendly discourse is always appreciated and always jumps up the YouTube algorithm. Listen, I'm new. My channel's young. The more help and the more content that you guys put some time in and watch, and will help me out too. So hopefully we're giving you the product that wants you to come back, and that's the goal. So TJ, you're a draft dodger now, dude. Welcome, man.
Hey,
I appreciate it, dude. That was so much fun. I can't wait to do it again. We got a long cycle in this draft process too, so hopefully, we'll get together with Pete, the mock draft guy, and a couple other people, maybe. Who knows? We'll have a smorgasbord of mock draft and a lot of content or draft discourse going on from here to April. So I appreciate your time, man, and it was a pleasure. And to everyone else, again, you can catch me on Twitter or X at DC_NY Jets. The YouTube channel is at Project Prospect with Dom C. And until next time, and our next video, signing out.